Tonight, the federal parties will be put to the test in two key by-elections in two very different ridings. And on the same day, Parliament returns. Voters in Montreal's LaSalle-Émard-Verdun have only ever elected the Liberals. But with the party polling at its lowest levels in 9 years, opposition parties see their chance.
People are not happy with the Liberals.
People are ready for change, I guess I would say.
The NDP and Bloc Québécois are hoping voters tired of Justin Trudeau will help them take the seat. And after a shocking by-election loss in a Toronto stronghold, the Liberals can't afford to lose another in Montreal.
I want to be clear that I hear people's concerns and frustrations.
And while the NDP play offense in the Montreal race, they are on defense in the other race, in the Winnipeg riding of Elmwood-Transcona. And the Conservatives are not making that easy by tying NDP leader Jagmeet Singh to the fading popularity of the Trudeau Liberals.
Canadian people have clearly lost confidence in our costly and incompetent Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
Well, Singh's move to tear up his agreement with the Liberals appealed to voters.
We've made this decision, we've gotten things done for Canadians, and now there will be a choice for Canadians to make.
Or will the Conservatives flip this orange riding blue? The polls close in just 30 minutes, and we'll bring you the results as they come in, walking you through the outcomes of two very significant races. Canada votes, it's by-election night. Well, hello everyone. I'm David Cochrane, and welcome to our special by-election coverage here in the Canada Votes edition of Power in Politics. We're going to begin tonight focusing on the race in Montreal, where we have reporters standing by following the three leading candidates tonight. And we're going to get it all started with the CBC's Sarah Levitt. She's with the Liberal candidate, Laura Palestini, at her headquarters tonight. And Sarah, this is a candidate who carries the hopes of the Liberals and maybe the mental health of the Liberals on her shoulders as she tries to hold on to this seat.
Very much in setting up in an old-time burger joint, well known in the neighborhood of Ville-et-Mort, Italian neighborhood, part of the riding. That riding, historically red, and the one that made up this area beforehand was also Liberal. It was the seat to Paul Martin for years. Is in jeopardy, and we have seen a lot of Liberal MPs come out throughout the election campaign to support Laura Palestini. Members like cabinet ministers such as Mark Miller and Mélanie Joly, Champagne, they have all been out for her, but there has been a notable absence. While Justin Trudeau has been campaigning a few times, he was here for the announcement of the candidate, and he was days ago in an unadvertised campaign outing on any of the posters. Now, what does that mean for this candidate? Is it about the candidate herself, or is it of the Liberals' place across the country, and a bit about the Liberal leader, Justin Trudeau? So that's something that we're going to see as the polls time, and we'll see if they're able to hold on to it.
Okay, Sarah, thank you so much. It's the CBC Sarah Levitt at the Liberal headquarters in Montreal. We're going to check in now with Alison Northcott, who is following the Bloc Québécois candidate tonight. So, Alison, give us a sense of what to expect from one of the two men with the last name Sauvé who are running in this by-election, have on tap for tonight.
Yeah, I'm at the Bloc Québécois is gathering this evening. The room is beginning to fill up. For polls to close at 9:30. The Bloc Québécois is positioning itself as an alternative to the Liberals in this by-election. Sauvé has been part of the sovereignist movement for many years, since he was 14 He's been going door to door in the riding, and he said he's hearing from people about some major issues affecting people in this particular riding. And one of those things is the housing crisis that he says is a major issue for voters. But he says he's also hearing from people that they're tired of the Liberals and they're tired of Justin Trudeau. So his pitch to them is that they can send a message to Ottawa by voting for the Bloc Québécois, by voting for something other than the Liberal Party. And for the Bloc, this would be a significant win for them if they were able to win this seat, which, as you said, has been Liberal for so long. It would give them another seat in the Montreal area. Right now they have one seat on the island of Montreal. It would give them a little bit more leverage, and more leverage as they aim to have more sway in this minority parliament. The candidate was here a little earlier today. He said he was feeling confident and optimistic about how things will go. He said he's had a lot of good feedback from people in the riding as he's been campaigning. Of course, we'll see how that plays out at the ballot box and how things go from here on in.
Okay, Alison, thanks so much. That's the CBC's Alison Northcott. We're covering one more campaign tonight in Montreal, and that's the New Democrats. That's where Craig Sauvé is the candidate, and that's where the CBC's Paula Diane Perez is standing by. So, Paula, thank you for being here with us tonight. What are the NDP's expectations? What can you tell us about Craig Sauvé and his hopes to win this riding?
Right now, I'm in the bar in the neighborhood of Verdun, where party leaders where party volunteers and party members are getting together. It's still early. People are slowly trickling in. I can show you the room a little bit. So the candidate, Craig Sauvé, is not here yet. I hear that he will be coming in later tonight. But let me tell you a little bit about him. Craig Sauvé is well known in the community. He has been a city councillor since 2013. Among other things, he has worked as an advisor for the executive committee at the City of Montreal. One of the big files he worked on was public transit. Now, of the issues that he said are important to him as a candidate for this race, he said housing. The housing crisis has hit this area pretty hard. So he says if he were to become an MP, he would work to free up funding for affordable housing. Also, the cost of living. But one of the issues that has drawn some controversy, Sauvé published a pamphlet with his photo over the Palestinian flag. Now, when he was criticized for it, he defended his position and he was supported by his party. The party and the NDP tells me that leader Jagmeet Singh was here at least 10 times during the campaign. There's been a lot of campaign. It remains to be seen whether public policy, as I mentioned earlier, is something that will impact how people vote here. The NDP has, at the moment, only one seat in all of Quebec. And one big question that people still have is, will that NDP decision to break the supply and confidence agreement with the Liberals, will that influence the vote? That remains to be seen, and I'll be here throughout the night.
Okay, Paula, well, you're at a place where the NDP can double the size of their caucus inside Quebec. We'll check back in with you as we start to get results. Okay, we have just touched on three of the candidates in LaSalle-Émard-Verdun because all of our indications are that this is a three-team race between the Liberals, the Bloc Québécois, and the NDP. But there are more than 90 candidates running in this by-election, and we have recreated the ballot here. The Power and Politics team was hard at work with a printer and tape and scissors. This is the 12 by 38 inch replica of the actual ballot that you get when you go in to vote in LaSalle-Émard-Verdun because of the longest ballot committee getting all kinds of people running on this to protest Canada's first past the post election system. So we'll see how that affects things tonight, like it did in St. Paul's. Back with me, like they were in St. Paul's, is our panel of party insiders. Gang, hopefully we can go home tonight knowing who won these two particular by-elections. I've got Greg Cochrane. He's a former Liberal ministerial staffer. Fred Delory, a former national campaign manager for the Conservatives. And Melanie Richer, former communication director for the NDP. Have you ever seen anything like this in any by-election? Like that's why Toronto-St. Paul's took so long. Elections Canada say they have taken extra steps and precautions. Greg, have the Liberals taken extra steps and precautions to avoid a repeat of Toronto-St. Paul's? What's your anxiety level going into this tonight?
Wow. So much for Cochrane after dark. Guns a-blazing.
I thought it was a good segue, personally.
Very, very good segue. Yeah. We'd spoken this summer about reflecting on the St. Paul's by-election, and I mentioned that the night of, I had a little bit of a pit in my stomach about if you were going to put me on the spot and ask, because I really didn't feel, based on a couple of inside voices that I think are smart and realistic, as well as a number of reporters that I've worked with over the years that were in Toronto, and I didn't think it looked very good for us there. The same inside voices would say would be pretty negative tonight about whether or not the Liberals are going to take this. My gut, the thing that I've been watching, is that the Conservatives don't have the same strength in the province of Quebec that they have been showing in polling elsewhere. David Lametti won by a sizable amount last time, but you could argue that for St. Paul's as well. But there just might be a bit of more of a residual effect for the Liberals that is positive, and also the three-way split.
Fred, what are your thoughts on what's at stake for the Liberals in Quebec? I mean, it's unlikely the Conservatives are going to win this. It's not a decision desk projection. That's an anticipation desk projection, because the Bloc is there, and they are one of the frontrunners. I mean, what's at stake for Greg and his team?
There should be a lot at stake. Unlike St. Paul's, which is a riding decades ago Conservatives used to win, this riding here is one of not just the safest seats for the Liberal Party in Quebec, it's, excuse me, it's one of the safest Liberal seats in the country. If you go back to Confederation, there's only been a handful of times that they've lost this seat, and that was Diefenbaker's sweep, Mulroney's sweep, Jack Layton, the Orange Wave there. So it's one of those big waves come and when the Liberals lose this. And that seems to be where we're going maybe the next election. But Trudeau and the Liberals, it may not have any impact on them the way they're acting, the way they acted after St. Paul's, where they lost that significant seat, and it was almost like nothing happened the next day.
Mel, I don't know if we're going to get an orange wave, but you might get an orange bump if Craig Sauvé can seal the deal there. I mean, expectations I hear is like it could be 3-4 percentage points separating first and third. Who knows, right? What are you hearing? What do you think the stakes are here?
Right, and that's pretty big. If we look at the last election, I think it was a difference of about 10,000, and the one before that about 14. So closing that gap, particularly in Montreal, which is a place the NDP has wanted to grow and has tried to grow for so long, so that Alexandre Boulris isn't the only orange MP in the province of Quebec, so that's something that they really care about.
He can have a Quebec caucus.
Yeah, he could have a Quebec caucus. I love that idea, and I'm sure he does too. But Jagmeet's been there often, and what I hear is the feeling is really good. I don't know that they think that they can pull it off, but they're trying everything that they can. And the nice thing is people know who this candidate is. If it shakes into a few percentage points today. Hopefully he runs again when the election comes next time around. But the excitement that they're feeling on the ground, the folks coming up to Jagmeet and to Craig throughout the by-election, the team has felt a sense of hope there, of renewal. Renewal, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm thinking renouvellement. But anyways, it feels good. So if they are able to close that gap, I think they'll be pretty happy with that result in Montreal.
Yeah, David Lametti won this in 2021 with 43% of the vote. The Bloc was second with 22, the NDP third with 19, and really the margins of victory have been at least 15 percentage points up to just under 21 percentage points for the Liberals. Rosemary Barton, you have covered Montreal politics, you've covered national politics, you are our chief political correspondent. What are you hearing about LaSalle-Émard-Verdun? What are your thoughts on the significance of this by-election?
In spite of that lovely intro, doesn't mean that what I say is going to come true. I just want to put that forward.
I'm your hype man, Rosie. Just let me do.
Yeah, listen, I'm hearing that it is a toss-up, as you guys have been talking about. It is very much a three-way race, but I'll put a couple of caveats on it. It's a very important stronghold for the Liberals, no doubt. It did go orange in 2011, but this is a place that Liberals need to hold if they want to try and convince one another that they are not really in the toilet and have a chance to win the next election. So that's the first caveat. The second one is that Quebecers, when they move to a protest vote, if they are upset, tend to go towards the Bloc Québécois. That is normal in Quebec. What is not as normal is for the Bloc Québécois to get votes on the island of Montreal. They only have one seat, so that would be significant, but maybe just a by-election kind of thing. And then the third thing about the NDP, I think that the candidate there is super well known, and that's been helpful for the NDP. I am not convinced that Jagmeet Singh is still very popular in Quebec. And I'm not sure that that is going to help them in this riding. But listen, the splits will do all kinds of things tonight, and we'll see who comes up the middle. If the Liberals lose, I agree with what Fred said. Like, I don't think we're going to see a drastic change. The Prime Minister is not going to quit. But there will be unrest, and there will be unrest from the Quebec caucus, who are going to start to worry about their own seats. And people probably know this, but the Quebec caucus is loud. It's loud and it's rowdy and it likes to talk to reporters. And there might be trouble there for the Prime Minister if they lose tonight.
Yeah, loud and rowdy and leaky, Rosie. That was the word I was going to use, because that Quebec caucus can leak like a straw diaper sometimes. Okay, so we have two by-elections tonight. We have the one on the island of Montreal. We have another one in Winnipeg. This is Elmwood-Transcona. This is less of an issue for the Liberals, who cannot afford to lose a seat in downtown Montreal or the island of Montreal after losing one in downtown Toronto. This is a real test for the NDP and a chance for a breakthrough by the Conservatives. We're going to check in with our reporters there. Ian Fraze, he's with the CBC in Manitoba, and he is following the NDP candidate Leila Dance tonight. So Ian, it's good to see you again. Tell me, what are the expectations for the NDP there? Is this an NDP seat or is this a Blakey seat, as everyone keeps telling me? How do you see it?
That is going to be the big test. We'll find out today if it is a Blakey seat or an NDP seat, because the NDP's really been entering this campaign with what some political observers would call a disadvantage, not having a Blakey on the ballot. The Blakey name really synonymous with politics in Winnipeg's East End, a real working class riding this is. The late Bill Blakey, an MP for almost 30 years. After that, his son Daniel for almost 10 years. It was Daniel's decision to step down to work in Wabkinu's provincial NDP government that necessitated this by-election. The woman hoping to succeed Blakey is Leila Dance. She led a business improvement group in the area for a few years. Dance has been touting her working class bona fides. She has the endorsement here of more than a dozen unions. Another thing the federal NDP have been trying to do has been to pin the healthcare problems on the federal Conservatives. That's an attempt really to also draw parallels with what's happened provincially, where the Conservatives have tried to reform the healthcare system a few years back, and those changes have been wildly panned. A critical piece as well to the NDP campaign here has been raising Leila Dance's profile by aligning her with some more well-known NDP politicians. Jagmeet Singh has paid a visit 4 or 5 times over the course of this campaign. NDP Premier Wabkinu, which polls say is the most popular premier in the country, he recorded a robocall on Dance's behalf. And Daniel Blakey, he hasn't been far away, as he has been campaigning regularly with Dance.
Okay, Ian, thanks so much. This is CBC's Ian Fraze. We have no numbers yet, but you can see from the big screen behind him, the Philadelphia Eagles leading the Atlanta Falcons 7-3. We're going to check in on the other contender for this seat, as we understand it, which is the Conservative candidate. Bartley Kivas is following the Conservative candidate Colin Reynolds' campaign. You're outside where it's going to be. Partly a normal thing on these by-election nights. The Conservatives are always the last party to let us inside. Give us a sense of how the race is looking for the Conservatives out there.
Well, the Conservatives have a candidate called, Colin Reynolds, and I'm standing outside the Royal George. It's a bar. It's a working class bar in a working class downtown Transcona, which is an eastern part of Winnipeg. The Conservatives have spent this entire campaign essentially trying to paint out a vote for the NDP as being a vote for Justin Trudeau and the Liberals, talking about the confidence and supply deal as something that was happening and even though that is no longer the case, they've continued with those attacks. I'm just letting you know I can't hear anybody right now, so if I'm talking over you, I apologize.
Keep going. You got me?
I gotcha. So here's the thing. The entire campaign, I have not seen Mr. Reynolds beyond he did have an appearance with Pierre Poilievre, who did visit once in July, back at the beginning of the campaign to rally the troops. And right now, Mr. Reynolds has effectively simply been campaigning the traditional Conservative way, which is door-to-door, identifying the vote, trying to get everybody out here on this election day. There was a very high voter turnout here, even higher than in Toronto, St. Paul's, at the advanced polls, 14% of the registered vote. So this is all going to be about GoTV here. Now, if you look at the last election here, and I'm sure your analysts will say this, 9,000 votes for Mr. Blakey over his Conservative contender here. And They're trying to make that up, but as you mentioned, and as Ian mentioned, no Blakey, this is something that's going to be easier for them to do.
Okay, Bartley, we'll check back in with you later. Hopefully you can get in and get warm. That's the CBC's Bartley Kivas in Winnipeg. We're going to go back now to our panel and Rosie. And Rosie, I want to start with you because you're a Winnipeg gal. Tell us about this. Everyone keeps talking about Daniel Blakey. I was joking earlier on the show that I'm going to move to Winnipeg and open a pub called Blakey's because I think it will make more money than any pub in the history of North America. What do you make of this particular race? In particular, the stakes for Jagmeet Singh, who tore up the supply and confidence agreement, said, Canada, you got a choice, me or Pierre Poilievre. Well, that's what they're dealing with in Elmwood-Transcona.
Yeah, and so in some ways you could view this by-election as a test of that move. Was that enough for people to say, oh, right, this guy is standing up for us. He's not just going along with the Liberals. We buy him and we like what he's doing. I think part of the conversation tonight will be, is it a test of that, and did that work? Did he get enough space from Justin Trudeau in this by-election? Because certainly the Conservatives have been going after Jagmeet Singh really hard over the past number of weeks because of this. It is very much, though, a Blakey riding, not just Daniel, but his father, who I knew a little bit and was a lovely man. And I think that is kind of the challenge for the riding here. Is it an NDP riding, or is it really attached to the legacy of that family? I think that Pierre Poilievre tonight will see whether or not his messaging to the blue-collar workers, to the union workers, a lot of them in the rail industry in that riding, whether that has worked, whether that is appealing. And if it doesn't work, I do think that there's a message there for the Conservatives about how broad their appeal is, because they are going to need to try and pick up seats like this going forward. So there's a couple of interesting storylines, but let's be clear, if Jagmeet Singh loses tonight, that's pretty devastating for the NDP. Yeah.
Mel, talk to me about this, because there has been the Liberals are managing expectations in LaSalle-Émard quite a bit, saying, oh, toss-up doesn't really mean anything. We got a lot of work to do. Jagmeet Singh tore up Sack and said, it's me or him. And that's the choice in some ways in Elmwood-Transcona. I mean, what's your view on how this race is going to go?
Right. Well, I think it's a little bit too close to that happening for us to really see the real results of whether or not walking away from the deal had any impact on the by-election in Elmwood-Transcona. But for sure, this has been, from the beginning, the correspondent in Winnipeg said it, how this is almost like the NDP is the one that's disadvantaged in this riding. And that is, the case on the ground. Rosie talked about rail workers in Transcona. That is something that definitely has hurt the Liberals and maybe have hurt the NDP a little bit because of what the government has done with the potential
binding arbitration.
Exactly, right. With the binding arbitration. So that's something that we'll see shake out. I'm told it's close. I'm told that they're feeling good about it, and we'll see what the result is tonight. But it is kind of a first test of what that looks like, the NDP's and Jagmeet's message about how it's me versus the Conservatives in the next election, particularly in this riding. It's kind of an interesting context that the NDP is the only party that's competitive in both of those ridings, an orange-red seat and an orange-blue seat, the two audiences that the NDP is continually having to talk to. But I think, we've got a good candidate. There's a lot of Jagmeet showing up to, the Labor Day event. The Conservative candidate wasn't there. The Liberal candidate wasn't there. A lot of talking to workers in that riding. Too soon to tell how that'll work out, but right. I know that folks are feeling good. But they've known from the beginning that this was a close one. I think, when Daniel Blakey even ran for this the first time, he had to prove that he was like his dad, and I think he only won by 61 votes. So we'll see.
Yep, but he won by 9,000 last time.
Yeah,
so, I
totally.
mean, it may be a Daniel Blakey seat, but after, how many generations of Blakey have to hold it before it becomes an NDP seat, right?
Daniel's got a few kids.
So maybe next time. Fred, I was speaking to someone who works for Mr. Poilievre about this, and they said, we have no chance of winning the seat. And I said, I'm old enough to remember when Jenny Byrne came on the last by-election special. We have no chance of winning Toronto St. Paul's, and Don Stewart took his seat today in the House of Commons. How do you see Elmwood-Transcona from the Conservative side?
Well, look, your source isn't that off, given that 14 of the last 15 elections in this riding, back when it was starting back when it was called Winnipeg Birds Hill. 14 of 15, the NDP have won. And I feel bad for poor Jim Malloway, one of the NDP MP between the Blakeys that held the seat and then was defeated. He's been an MLA on and off for 40 years for Elmwood.
Is he a Jim Malloway Blakey? Does he hyphenate his name at least?
Maybe he should have in 2011. But look, this is obviously a competitive seat now, and it shouldn't be. This should be an NDP stronghold. The fact that the Conservative Party is doing well in suburban, urban Winnipeg, I think says a lot for the party and for Mr. Poilievre's message, and that it is resonating and working here. I do think Jagmeet coming out randomly a few weeks ago to tear up the Saca agreement without any real reason. This is the reason. It's tonight. It's this by-election, trying to save this seat. That's what they're trying to do. Will it work or not? I think it's probably too late for that issue to shift on them. But obviously, the Conservatives are just going to pull their vote as much as they can.
So, Greg, the Liberals are not really seen to be players in this particular riding, but I'm sure you have thoughts about the stakes and implications for the various teams of your fellow panelists here.
Just some observations. The week that we kind of came in on a Tuesday afternoon when the deal was ripped up.
Yeah.
One of the things I wondered about was what the by-elections had to do with it, because this would be holding an NDP seat, and Craig Sauvé very quickly came on, kind of like the national notice of a contender. So I did wonder if that, like Fred, I wondered if that had anything to do with it. The NDP should be well positioned, as you said. Daniel Blakey won this by 9,000. The other factor I would say is Premier Canoe. Today is the first day where I've seen any negative press about him. They've kicked somebody out of caucus. I don't think that's going to have any impact on the by-election, but that's been a pretty good honeymoon thus far. And he's feeling so secure. If I remember correctly, I think in the last couple of days he's also been campaigning with Premier Eby in British Columbia. Mm-hmm. So that says to me that everything should be going in the NDP. The wind should be going their way. The one thing I thought was kind of interesting is the choice of the Conservative candidate was more on the Labour side, and I know that that's a play that the Conservatives are making. And one of the things I'm going to watch tonight is whether or not that was a play that they can actually carry through and it actually benefits for them.
Right. Colin Reynolds is a construction electrician and a member of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, because the play is for union members, not necessarily union leaders, though they would take them if they can get them. Rosie, on the point of the supply and confidence agreement ending, I mean, the meta strategy is this time, you need so much time Robin needs to stop supporting Batman, you got to differentiate yourself and show the contrast, and it's tough to do that. Do you think there's a connection with the by-election tonight? Or even both of them, because the NDP do have a shot in LaSalle-Émard.
Listen, I don't think it was the only reason. I think it was a factor. I don't think it was the only reason. We've known that they were talking about this back in June, that this has been a point of contention inside caucus. Mm-hmm. That people felt that they weren't getting enough anymore from it, that it had sort of run its course. Was the timing affected by by-elections? Maybe. Was it more to do with anger around the rail stoppage? I would tend to think yes. I mean, ultimately, the NDP just needed as much time as possible to try and pull away from the Liberals. And I think that the by-election, I take Mel's point that it's only been a couple of weeks, but I do think this is a test of that, to at least see if there's been any positive resonance from ripping up that agreement. Because if not, if they aren't starting to feel that already, I think that that's problematic, right? It either means that they stayed in the deal too long, or that they might have to do things, more radical things, to show that they are not the Liberals, i.e. say we don't like a carbon tax and we're not going to do that, right? So there are interesting things that could come from this if they win, because I think it kind of reassures the NDP and Jagmeet Singh that they made the right decision and that they should keep going forward to make sure that they are not being dragged down by the Liberal vote. But Winnipeg is supportive of the NDP, right? It likes NDP candidates and MPs and MLAs. So this is a place where they need to hold on to these seats because they don't have a million of them across the country. And there are places where growth is just not going to happen.
Okay, that's our chief political correspondent, Rosemary Barton. We're 60 seconds away from the polls closing in LaSalle-Émard-Verdun and in Elmwood-Transcona. We are told that Elections Canada has already started counting the advance vote in LaSalle-Émard-Verdun, so we don't have a situation like we had in Toronto-St. Paul's because there are a million candidates running in that seat. If you have questions about the by-election or what it could mean for the next federal election, you can send us an email to ask@cbc.ca, and we'll try to get to that during the show. Our producers will have a look at it. We'll pop it here on my screen, and we'll see if our smart panelists or even your averagely intellectual host can answer it. All right, with 20 seconds to go for the poll before the polls close. Mel, I do want to ask you about Jagmeet Singh and his decision to end the supply and confidence agreement. You had talked about how, and we had Matthew Dubé on the show shortly after that. I talked about how there were people in caucus who were frustrated for a year because they felt constrained by it, that they couldn't attack the Liberal government. I'm going to ask the question in just a second, because I do want to say it is 9:30 Eastern Time, and polls have officially closed in both LaSalle-Émard-Verdun and Elmwood-Transcona. A Montreal riding, LaSalle is, that is a test for the Liberal Party as their support flags in the polls, and that Winnipeg riding in Elmwood-Transcona, where the NDP is hoping to hang on to a seat and show that they can fend off a rising Conservative Party. We're going to be bringing you the results live as they come in. You can watch the meeting update right there on the bottom of your screen. We're expecting results in short order from some of the advanced polls in LaSalle-Émard-Verdun. We're all praying. We're all praying we don't get the final projection at 4 o'clock in the morning. So on that, the NDP said they wanted to, they felt constrained. Yeah. The Liberals were also constrained because for 2.5 years we watched Jagmeet Singh get what he wanted from the Liberals and then stand up in question period and put the boots to them. And now we're seeing the Liberals going at him. It's changed that whole dynamic. I mean, how do you think that's going to work politically for the two former partners there?
Right, and you know what you said about what Matt Dubé said for a year now, folks in the NDP caucus have been uncomfortable about this since day one. They've been uncomfortable about it since they were told that, we were entering a deal with the Liberal government. And that's because a lot of folks who are New Democrats because they don't trust the Liberals. They don't trust the Liberals to do the things that the Liberals say. So from day one, a lot of folks were uncomfortable. I think folks were optimistic and hopeful that we could get stuff done because they saw this as a way to really help people in a government where you wouldn't have the power to do so otherwise. But throughout it, people didn't think that the Liberals were doing enough, and that I think lasted. And to Matt's point, I think folks were ready to walk whenever it made sense. As it relates to the by-election, I think you needed to end it by the session, before the session started.
Same day, so.
This week will be, if we go until writ drop, if we go until the fixed election date, we would be writ drop maybe this week, a year from now. Like, you don't have that much runway left, right? You need to start figuring out what you're doing in the next election. So I think that timing made sense. For the new dynamic, I think it'll be interesting. It's funny, too, to have the bloc in the mix kind of say, like, yeah, we're ready to deal, we're ready to do whatever, we're ready to go right away, which was kind of a funny thing to talk to voters about in Montreal, to say, well, the bloc is just going to keep helping the Liberals, nothing's really going to change, which was interesting. But, yeah, it's interesting to throw a few shots. I think even Greg and I were throwing a few shots last week. So yeah, it's a new dynamic, but that's okay. And it'll be an interesting year. It goes back to, what we saw in 2019 to 2021 with a lot of, with that minority government and the help that we were pushing the government to do for people during COVID. So not too dissimilar, a bit maybe more heated with the Conservatives, but yeah.
Well, we're going to have you two do trust exercises later in the show, fall back and catch each other. But Greg, I mean, you have talked on Power and Politics many times about Jagmeet Singh gets a win from the government, then turns around and attacks the government. He may still get some wins from this government, but they're attacking him today, and they put out an ad that ends with like Singh and Poilievre looking at each other the way they would do the Trudeau seeing things on the Conservative side. I mean, what do you make of this new world we've entered, certainly starting today on the 16th of September?
And Elizabeth May, I think she sounded like Fred Delory on Friday, talking about how the Conservative leader seems to be pulling the strings of the NDP leader. Look, I think that the deals that were done, or the deal and what was done, are things that are going to be ultimately very positive for Canada. It's maybe a while before we see the effects, but I think already the amount of people that are taking advantage of the dental care program is a really good thing. When I was going through university, when we studied 72 to 74, when the Pierre Trudeau government was supported by the NDP. I mean, one of the lessons was that we were always taught was, in 74, the Liberals won a minority, won a majority, and it didn't really help the NDP. We're not, based on polls, I'm not sure that that's what's happening right now. I could never understand why Singh could never take the win and just spend a couple of days talking about how he made Parliament work and look what we achieved. But he had to, it was... I think, David, what you're seeing, the turn from Liberals on the NDP leader, is based on the reaction from, and it's widespread. I've seen, political scientists, I've seen columnists on the left, Elizabeth May today. The way that it was ended was not spectacular. And there's been a couple of things now for the NDP leader where he's not handled it really well. And, politics, if someone senses a weakness, and they can take it to their advantage, they're absolutely going to do that. But if Singh had, spiked this football and said the deal is done, and this has been a huge success for us, and he got days and days of kudos, I don't think the Liberals would be jumping on him right now. But people smell blood in the water. There was a op-ed in the Toronto Star yesterday, from someone from the Sikh community who said, very impressed with what he's accomplished, but I think he's made the wrong move. There is, the reviews are in, and they're not good, and I think the Liberals are responding to that.
Fred, Greg said some of the things that they've agreed to in the supply and confidence agreement, it may be a while, but they will have a positive effect on the country. That's good because they've got nothing but time over there. Right. How are the Conservatives viewing this suddenly having Justin Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh going at each other in a more direct way? Because it was always just the NDP attacking the Liberals, but now they're fighting back in a way that we've not seen in a long time.
Well, it's interesting. The SACA agreement, politically speaking, has really benefited the Conservative Party. Ever since the deal was made, those parties have been flat and the Conservatives have grown. I don't know if it's handcuffed the two parties where they can't really talk to each other or against each other. And to Greg's point about Jagmeet, where he really couldn't communicate what he was doing. He had the deal on one side and then trying to throw a punch on the other during basically the same day against him. It wasn't working for them at all. So, I think there's been the gloves are off now. We're into a minority parliament for the first time, really since 2011, where we have all these parties that can jockey and go at each other. Trudeau's had two minority governments, but he had a pandemic right away into one of them. Yeah. And then the SACA agreement right after. So this is really a new dynamic that we haven't had in a decade. And at the same time, we're in this weird spot where this parliament's only got a year to go. This is one of the longest lasting minority parliaments in history. We have an end date. It's not like other minority parliaments where you're jockeying and negotiating and trying to get things through for a certain amount of time. There's an end date and we're heading towards it.
Well, we have a scheduled end date, right? Like even a carton of milk can go bad before the end date. And there's a very real possibility that's going to happen here. Yeah.
This week.
But that's what I wanted to talk about next. The polls have been closed now for about 7.5 minutes in LaSalle-Émard-Verdun and in Elmwood-Transcona. We do not have any results. Watch the bottom of the screen. You see movement there. We will show you the data when we get it. But, Fred, I spoke to Karina Gould. You're talking to Liberals, speaking to them earlier today. And they're like, oh, we're back to where we were in 2019. We're back to where we were in sort of 2021. And I just don't think they are, right? Like, I remember the election in 2019 where they ended up in a minority situation. But the Conservatives then immediately went into a leadership crisis. Yep. Chrystia Freeland, if you remember this, was made the Intergovernmental Affairs Minister because the number one issue on their plate was the alienation of premiers and disagreements with the provinces. Huh. And then within a few months, Iran shot down a plane, the Wet'suwet'en blockaded railways, and a virus came out of China that changed everything. Right? And then after 2021, you and Mr. O'Toole, it went into another leadership crisis, and within a few months, they had to deal with the NDP. You've got a unified, well-funded, riding high, confident Conservative Party, and just kind of confusion and disquiet on the other side. I don't think it's anything like 2019 and 2021. totally different environment, right?
Completely different. They haven't found their footing at all throughout all of that, and now they're into a situation where, again, we can go and they just lost their campaign manager a few weeks ago. I couldn't imagine being a campaign manager myself, being in that situation.
Is that his title?
National campaign director, or national director,
yeah,
whatever. Sure, same job, right?
Yeah.
Well, is there something we should know, Greg? Is something are you getting a new job? Have they got someone to replace Jeremy Broadhurst?
No comment. As you were. I think they're working on it.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
yeah.
All right. No, you made an interject. No comment on me asking if you're doing it, or no comment. No. Okay.
No.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, that was weird. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. No. I mean, that was that's
We're like,
like.
sorry, what?
Yeah. Mel, you're the communications person. Work on this guy.
Gosh.
Yeah.
No, but just the Liberals are, they need to figure out what their message and what their narrative is. They don't have a campaign manager. They don't have someone in charge of the campaign, and we could theoretically go at any time. It takes months and months and months of planning and preparing for that to get the message, to get the organization together, to get it all. And I'm sure Mr. Broadhurst has been doing stuff for the last year, but to just hand over to someone else is not an easy task. It's not something that can be done easily at all.
Well, let's just talk about that, right? Because while we're waiting for the results, I know we are focused on these two particular seats, but really it's, look, whenever Canadians vote, we should be covering it, but also the implications of this could be rather large for the various parties. The Liberals went to Nanaimo, Mel, and they came back, and we didn't see any clear change, in leadership. Maybe in leadership style, we're sort of seeing a more aggressive Trudeau. He called Pierre Poilievre a liar on CJAD in a call into Montreal on Friday. Very aggressive with everybody today in his language. What do you make of sort of the message and narrative that we've seen since Nanaimo? Is there one? Is there the beginnings of one? What do you think of what we're seeing so far?
Maybe a bit of feistiness, maybe a bit of trying to, frame up the choices as he sees them. I don't know if we've started to see a narrative. I still, we were talking last Friday, but we need to know why he's running and why he's doing this and what his plan is, and we haven't seen that. And I think he needs to start figuring that out, and particularly why him, I think, is really important.
Right.
So, we need to see that this week, but it's kind of funny to hear y'all talk about the NDP, because typically in elections, Liberals go out of their way to never mention the NDP, to not say Jagmeet's name. That's what the last two elections have been about, and that's because they don't want this to be a three-way conversation. They want this to be a two-person conversation. So the fact that he's talking about Jagmeet every day, bring it on. Honestly, is what I would be saying if I was working for the NDP. You're bringing us into the conversation, and it's no longer a two-way race. So that's new. That's not something that at least the last two elections that I worked on was something that was happening. It's always hug them in so that people see that we're nice to the NDP, and you don't have to pick the NDP because you can pick us. So this is very different. And it kind of goes back to the point of how you can get some wins but then say bad things. Without doing that, you get swallowed up in the Liberal brand, and that's very dangerous territory for the NDP. It's what we saw the BC NDP do under John Horgan with the Green Party. That was quite popular, and he kind of stuck a stick in their wheels, and it kind of stopped them from doing anything because it was just hugging in all the time. And the Green Party didn't do that contrast, didn't say, here's why we're different in BC.
Well, he pulled the plug on them and called an election and won a majority government, right?
Like 6 months early, but anyways, but it worked, right? Like it was. They hugged them in.
Don't trust New Democrats and SACA agreements is what I've taken away from this. But it did work. No, but it worked for him, right? He saw the opportunity, and he made his move.
That was as part of the conversations when we were talking about the deal. That was one of the top lessons. Do not let this happen to you. Do not let the conversation become that you are irrelevant because you're making them better. No, the point always was not to be irrelevant to make them better. The point was to show people that this doesn't happen without you. So if you want nice things, you got to vote for the orange team. And I think that's the two conversations that you're trying to have. Is it complicated? Does the message always punch through? No, but that is actually very important to talk to voters persuasively.
So, Greg, what is the message? What is the narrative? What is the reason he's running for a fourth time, as Mel has sort of defined it? Because, we haven't heard a lot of the specific details of the plan that came out of the Liberal caucus meeting. We did read about them watching clips of Al Pacino giving a speech from Any Given Sunday, which is quite the speech if you've ever seen that movie. Yeah. I think there were some Rocky videos maybe that were played as well. You know, just quickly, your thoughts on that, and then we're going to check in at headquarters.
Well, I mean, you asked him this question, right? And to be blunt, there is not an answer that I've heard yet that satisfies me. You know, for me, I would be talking about Canadians just went through a hell of a lot. And now it's time to enjoy, you know, following a lot of stress, a lot of sacrifice, a lot of sadness through the pandemic. And this government got you through it. And now this other guy wants to take stuff away. And I want to stay around to make sure that Canadians succeed and prosper. I'm not hearing that. I'm not quite sure why. And this is why sometimes, you know, whether it's Mark Carney or other advisors coming in, you cannot help. I've worked in caucuses, you cannot help, but at some point the bunker mentality comes in, and you've got to hear from whether it's other groups or bring in fresh voices. Something has to be brought in.
Okay, she's not in a bunker. I think she might be in a bar, but she's at the Bloc Québécois headquarters in Quebec. Alison Northcott is standing by with Christine Normandin, the Deputy House Leader of the Bloc Québécois, at the Bloc event in LaSalle-Émard. Alison, can you hear me there? Oh, I'm not sure if Alison knows. Okay, hear there you go. Take it away, Alison.
What time is it?
Right now.
Yep, you're live. Go ahead, Alison. Take it away. You got a guest there.
We're here at the Bloc Québécois evening where they're meeting, and it's getting very crowded, as you can see, and quite noisy. But I have here with me MP Christine Normandin for the Bloc Québécois. You were talking earlier about feeling enthusiastic and confident. Where is that feeling coming from for this evening?
Well, I think it was mainly from what we had as answers from going door-to-door knocking. We really could feel something on the ground. And when people come to you enthusiastically to tell you that they voted for you, even though you didn't ask them, just by meeting them on the street, you can see that it's a positive vote that we get, not a vote against someone else. But so I guess the message that we've been sending throughout the past years has now reached the voters. So it was really a nice election to do on the ground. We really could feel the enthusiasm, and I think it's really bursting tonight with the volunteers as well.
I know this riding is a Liberal stronghold. It has been Liberal for many years. I know that it has in the past also had a Bloc Québécois MP in certain parts of the riding as well, but it has a strong Liberal history here. What is it about this moment, do you think, that voters, that you're hoping voters will choose the Bloc?
I guess that the message that we've been sending in the past years really helped. The fact that we presented ourselves as the adult in the room, making concrete propositions, I think it really helped, and that's what people Bloc is working for the people in Quebec, and see them, people feel that they are represented well. And that's also a message that we get. Please continue to fight for us. So I guess it's a message for sent to us for what we do, and as well as the way I understand it, a message sent to the actual government. So it's a mix of both.
And what would it mean for you to have this extra seat? How would that affect how you do things in Parliament?
Well, I'd for sure be happy to have an extra colleague by my side, one that I've known for many years. But I think also it would send a message to the government. We, in the past year, since the NDP Liberal divorce, we've been acknowledged as a good partner for discussion. So we now have the ability to make gains. And I think it would send a message that we also have the support of the population to do so and make more gains for Quebecers if we ever win tonight.
Thank you very much, Madame Normandin. That's Christine Normandin. She's the MP for Saint-Jean for the Bloc Québécois. As you can see, the evening, there is a lot of energy and enthusiasm here tonight. Very high expectations for the Bloc here in Verdun, LaSalle-Émard.
Okay, Alison, thank you so much. That's the CBC's Alison Northcott. And again, gang, this is what they're dealing with in that riding. This is a replica that we have recreated here of the ballot that is happening in that riding. There are 91 candidates running in LaSalle-Émard-Verdun, which is why perhaps we don't have any results yet. Now, we're told Elections Canada had started counting some advanced polls earlier, had brought in extra staff. The hope was to avoid a repeat of what we saw in Toronto St. Paul's, where it was like, I don't know, 4 days later. No, the next morning, before 4:30 a.m. Tyler in the control room tells me you got the results. But this is an interesting thing. This ballot, and I swear I'm not going to use this as a prop the whole night, but I want to show you something. The New Democrats and the Bloc Québécois candidates, Craig Sauvé, NDP, Louis-Philippe Sauvé, Bloc Québécois. They're right next to each other, right here on this 91-person ballot. How you get two candidates with the same last name, Fred, I don't know if that affects things in the actual voting. You might have some people that might, miss and it could change things. But the Bloc Québécois finds themselves in a very interesting position now, in that they say they feel they have a tremendous opportunity here to make gains for Quebec. And they said today they're unlikely to vote for a confidence motion, which Mr. Poilievre is going to bring at his earliest opportunity if it's just about the carbon tax. He says he's going to have to do better than that. So what do you think we're going to see coming from the BQ?
Well, what's interesting, and we're not seeing much of it in English Canada, what's going on in Quebec right now, why the Bloc are where they are as well. Like, yeah, the Liberals are collapsing, and this was an opportunity maybe for the NDP to seize that. But the Bloc are surging now in some ways in the polls in Quebec. And now the Parti Québécois, their provincial cousins,
they're number one.
Are number one now.
Yep.
And what's interesting, or I should say scary, particularly as an Atlantic Canadian who doesn't want to lose any part of my country where, we have to get a passport just to drive home, the PQ have made it very clear they're bringing a referendum as soon as they can. It's not like the PQ for the last 15, 20 years that's been pretty muted on separatism, where now the PQ are putting it right in the front window. They had a yes rally recently. So there's something happening there in Quebec that I think we need to be paying a lot more attention to. And this Bloc, it's becoming if they win this tonight, they're going to feel emboldened as well in Parliament, where they may not be as cautious to bring this government down.
Right. The Bloc Québécois, they are the third party in the House of Commons. The NDP are the fourth party in the House of Commons. We're going to check in now at NDP candidates' headquarters in LaSalle-Émard-Verdun. That's where the CBC's Paula Diane Perez is standing by. She's following the NDP candidate Craig Sauvé, and she has a guest. Paula, take it away.
Yes, I am here with Alexandre Boulris. He is the only NDP MP across the province. So he's here to answer a few questions. Alexandre, so tell me, once the NDP held 59 seats in Quebec, at the moment you're the only MP with this party. How has the party worked to change that in this election?
It's important, but it's important to bring hope and real change in the life of the people. We had a really great campaign with Craig Sauvé. I really hope he's going to be elected tonight. What we see is that people are disappointed with the Liberals, and that the NDP has provided real results for the people, like dental care, anti-scab, and farmer care. So we'll continue to fight. But if I can have another MP from Quebec with the NDP team, it's going to be great. But it's historically a Liberal riding. It's a stronghold. So we'll see. We had a really great campaign. Let's hope for the best tonight.
How do you believe that break from the deal with the Liberals, how will that show up in the election results tonight?
But the Liberals, a lot of people are disappointed with the Liberals, and they want some change. And we represent that change, that optimist change that is really working for the people, for the workers and their families. The next federal election, nobody thinks that Justin Trudeau can win it. So it's going to be Pierre Poilievre and his cuts in public services, or who delivers for people, for families, for seniors, and brings some hope, new vision for change in our society.
Thank you. That was Alexandre Boulris. He is the MP for the riding of Sorcemont-la-Petite-Patrie here on the island of Montreal.
Okay, Paula, thank you so much. Melanie, when you're saying cut, it froze. I thought he had his feed cut. Alexandre Boulris, looking for another member of the Quebec caucus, maybe somebody you can carpool to Ottawa with. After the high water mark of 2011, it's been receding since then. I mean, what would it mean to break through and take a seat from the Liberals in Quebec for the New Democrats?
Right, maybe I'll just correct for Alexandre. He would want me to take the train to Ottawa. Alexandre takes the train to Ottawa, so I'm sure Craig will join him and take the train to Ottawa. It would mean big things. You know, the NDP and particularly Jagmeet has spent a lot of time in Montreal since Jagmeet has been leader to show Jagmeet's values to Quebecers, particularly folks in Montreal, and to show what kind of leader he'll be, and you know, remind folks of who the NDP is, and you know, Jack Layton's NDP was, particularly in Quebec. I'll maybe disagree about one of the comments that was made earlier about, you know, not being sure whether or not Jagmeet was helpful in that riding. He wouldn't have been there 10 times if he wasn't that helpful. He would have not been present at all, like Justin Trudeau, if he wasn't helpful. So I think Jagmeet is popular in Montreal, particularly with those younger voters, and particularly with, you know, the voter segment of women under 35. So hopefully, I'm sure the NDP is hoping that they see that tonight, particularly Alexandre. I think he'll be really excited to see if Craig Sauvé wins tonight. But that's definitely been a huge point of focus for the NDP in the last few elections, and I'm sure will be another big point of focus for the NDP heading into the next one.
He's going after the Swifties, women under 35. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, okay. So basically, Jagmeet Singh is a Democrat. Taylor Swift, I think, is what I just took from Mel. Okay, we're going to get we'll get Greg on Liberals in just a second. But we're going to check in at Liberal headquarters. So that's where the CBC Sarah Levitt is. She is standing by at the Liberal headquarters tonight in LaSalle-Émard-Verdun, where she has a guest. Sarah, take it away.
David, well, anticipation, of course, waiting for those polls to show some of those results. I'm here with the tourism minister. Can you tell me, how are you feeling tonight? We just heard from the Bloc Québécois headquarters. We also heard from the NDP. They're pretty excited. How do you feel?
Well, I mean, other than having the results, we are very proud of the campaign we had, because we had so many volunteers. We had hundreds of volunteers coming up to this by-election. Lots of MPs and ministers coming up. Everybody was behind this, and I think other than getting the results, having that kind of energy, it's a good thing. It's a good dry run to the general election, which I think will be the most important thing, because that's where you're going to be electing the next government. And I think that we did a good campaign, and it's looking, you know, good for us in terms of the general election, in terms of organization, and that's why we're so proud of this campaign.
You know, this riding and this area has historically been red, although now we are seeing pollsters suggest that it could go in any direction. Just the fact that it could go in any direction, what does that tell you, or what does that indicate for you about how people are feeling about the Liberal Party and perhaps your leader, Justin Trudeau?
Well, for one, for us it's very clear as a party and as MPs and as candidates that our candidate will be the Prime Minister. He will be leading us in the next general election that actually can now happen anytime. Now, in terms of what the riding is now, I mean, ridings change, demographics change. And I mean, as you can imagine, a lot of people here are owners, but there's a lot of tenants. And tenants, you know, there's a movement in terms of population and demographics. So, yes, I mean, it will be a good race, and I can't wait to see the results tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, yeah, David, just hearing there kind of what the Liberals are hoping from this. We haven't seen the results come in quite yet, but they're really hoping to hold on. Of course, there might be a little bit of worry as well there, as maybe she didn't indicate that as much, but I think there is some worry in the Liberal camp about what transpires here tonight.
Yeah, Sarah, I think you're 100% right on that, with a margin of error of 0%. Greg, I know there's a lot of anxiety about what's going to happen there. Look, you are seeing some percentages on the bottom of the screen. We are getting some early numbers coming in from Elmwood-Transcona. We're just going to wait for a second. They're coming from the consortium, which is the consortium of media that feeds out this data. But Elections Canada doesn't have that information up just yet. So I think we're just waiting to do a double check, and we'll walk through them in just a little bit. They're very small. They're the first numbers from Elmwood-Transcona. So the percentages, they're there. We'll go through it in a minute. But Greg, just the anxiety about LaSalle-Émard-Verdun. And the fact that the Prime Minister, like Jagmeet Singh was there a lot, the Prime Minister was barely there and wasn't on the flyers and wasn't on the signs. You got a Prime Minister who represents a Montreal riding who can't go into another Montreal riding in a meaningful way for a bunch of reasons. I mean, that's
You saying it's a sign, David?
Yeah, which he's not on because it's the Montreal by-election.
And since I've used my one no comment for the entire show,
yes, we don't let those continue.
I guess I can't avoid this. I mean, there is a little bit of sense of, I hate to say the word resignation, but I think St. Paul's taught people to be realistic and no safe seats. And let's be really clear here. Why are we having this by-election in David Lamette's seat? It's because they shuffled cabinet and David Lamette was no longer in it and Carolyn Bennett was no longer in that cabinet. So, one of the things that politics teaches us, and when you've been around it as long as the three partisans here have been, is you really have to start to absorb that the buck stops with someone. And, I think they've probably had some pretty blunt conversations at the caucus retreat in BC, and they're stealing for this. Now, the reality is, if the Liberals win tonight, that's great and everything, but they can't forget the agonizing that has led up to this. So the result tonight will cause more conversations to happen. The Prime Minister says he's not moving on. I can argue that. I'm on a radio panel on Wednesday mornings with a long-standing partisan, John Capabianco, and we talk about the Mulroney effect. And if Mulroney had ran in '93, would the damage have been as bad to the PC party? And a lot of conservatives from those days say that. Do you also, stick with what you have? He's an epic campaigner. He's incredibly strong, but what that interview kind of danced around is there will be a conversation regardless of this, and it's just a question of how much more painful it will be. I mean, there's some realities here. Why are the Liberals not advertising? I've been saying it for more than a year. These are questions that I know that were being asked at caucus, and I'm not sure that people have had a really great answer on that front.
Yeah, I think that is true. I'm just trying to get some clarity on the numbers. We're going to get to that in a second. I'm listening to you, but I'm also trying to communicate with people who I can't be shouting at while I'm on live on a live broadcast. So we're going to check in Winnipeg. We've talked to guests at all the headquarters in Montreal that we're monitoring closely in this race. We're going to go to Winnipeg, the other by-election in Elmwood-Transcona. Ian Fraze is there. He's standing by at NDP headquarters with MP Blake Desjardins. Ian, take it away.
Yes, correct. Blake, you spent a few days now or you arrived yesterday here in Elmwood-Transcona. What's some first impressions of the riding?
Well, first of all, Daniel Blakey has done such a fantastic job representing this area. He's a personal friend of mine. He's a remarkable human being. You know it. You feel it at the doors. I was there all day yesterday. People know what Daniel has delivered, whether that was dental care or pharma care. Making sure that people here in Elmwood-Transcona get the benefits they need was something core to his mission. He's someone who wants to help everyday people. Leela Dance is that person. She's there. She's spent over 20 years in this community building civil society, building non-for-profits. She's well known by those who've needed services in this area, and I'm pretty excited. People here are excited, and they want more from their government. They need more from Parliament, and that's what they need Leela Dance for.
You mentioned Leela Dance there. What stands out to you from meeting her and campaigning with her the last few days?
Okay, Leela is a superhero. Like, she's a ultimate community, grassroots human being. When you think of politics, sometimes it's easy to feel disengaged from the real people who live in your community. She's a real person. She's your neighbor. She's someone who you can pick up the phone, call her, and she's going to answer and say, if you need something, I'm there to help, or I know who can. Leela is almost like the person, like a community champion that people know. From over 20 years of service, you can imagine just how many people she served.
Now, throughout the campaign, some critical moments have happened for the NDP. The canceling of the confidence and supply agreement, expressing doubt around the carbon tax. Are those messages that you're hearing at the doors here in Elmwood-Transcona? What are people saying about it?
People are really feeling like the cost of living is skyrocketing. Like, they're worried about rent. They're worried about groceries. They're worried about making ends meet. That's a scary thing. When you're thinking about a single mom who's working 2, 3, 4 jobs, how are you going to pay rent while also making sure you can deliver for your family? It's a really hard and stressful thing. And so when I think about the confidence and supply agreement, I think about the fact that we've been able to save Canadians thousands of dollars a year, whether that was doubling the GST, whether that was dental care, whether that was delivering free contraceptives and insulin. Those are programs that are going to save people's lives, but also their wallet. And I think what Leela's been able to show the community members here, because of Daniel's good work, is the fact that NDP members, when you send them to Parliament, we work. We're not going to sit there and spend 4 years slinging slogans like some people at that place do. We're going to go there and represent the people we care about, and they have real needs, like dental care, like pharmacare, and we're fighting for that, and we're delivering it.
If this is, you know, there's anticipation that this is going to be a real tight race. If that does become the case, if it is even a loss for the NDP, what reflections will your caucus be involved in, and what perhaps changes?
I think a really important piece to that question is knowing that the ground isn't fair. Like, we have Conservatives who take huge corporate donations, massive. They take these donations in and have raised millions of dollars. New Democrats, we spend our time going door to door, talking to neighbors, and if they can spend 20, 30, 100 bucks to throw into our campaign, we take it. We spend money because we need to get our message of helping people to others. The Conservatives, they spend money so that they can keep their corporate masters happy. And that's the biggest difference between our two campaigns. We're running a grassroots campaign here in Elmwood-Transcona. We have hundreds of volunteers who are on the doors reminding people to get out to vote. The Conservatives, I haven't seen them at all in this last few days I've been here.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Edmonton area MP Blake Desjardins, back to you.
Okay, Ian, thank you very much. And just for those of you watching at home, I have to just put in a fact check here. You can't take corporate donations in Canada. You can take a maximum individual donation of about $1,600, $1,700 a year. Unions can't donate either, so I'm not sure about the millions of that, but the Conservatives are running up a war chest with a lot of individual donors donating the maximum or donating monthly amounts. So they have the advantage, and maybe some has come from people who work for corporations, but it's not a donation from a corporation. Okay, some numbers we do have is the first results from Elmwood-Transcona. And right there you can see that Leela Dance, who is the NDP candidate, has a 52-vote lead over Colin Reynolds of the Conservatives. Now, this is 6 polls of 191 reporting. That's 3.1% of the polls. So we're still a long way to go. She's got a 52-vote lead. Ian McIntyre for the Liberals is there in third, way back at 25. And Sarah Couture from the People's Party of Canada with 8 votes. Now, we expect that this trend will continue, Mel, of the NDP and the Conservatives sort of battling back and forth. I'm not ruling out the Liberals or anyone else at this early stage, but the trends are what the trends are and the early numbers. What did you make of what Blake Desjardins had to say about the fight there? And I wasn't trying to pick on him by correcting him, but it's important people know that corporate money isn't flowing into anybody's campaigns legally.
Yeah, he likely means, you know, corporate leaders or some of the fundraisers that we've seen at some people's homes that the Conservatives are doing. But you're totally right that that was a good correction. It's interesting to hear what he had to say about the feeling on the ground and the feeling at the doorstep. I think everybody in the room understood how well Daniel Blakey is liked in the riding following
it's been brought up a few times in this campaign.
Following Blake's statements, which I'm sure has hopefully helped Leela, particularly as Daniel was campaigning with her. Obviously, you know, just a few votes in. I like that it's NDP first and Blue a few, you know, behind. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that actually translates tonight, and I think too how that translates with advanced votes. It'll be interesting to see if those are similar, if those are different, and yeah, how that shakes out.
Okay, we're going to go back to Winnipeg. We're going to check in with our Bartley Kivas, who is in Winnipeg. He's outside Conservative headquarters, but he tells me it's 20 degrees tonight, so he's got that going for him. Bartley, any signs of life or any word at all from the Conservative campaign there in Elmwood-Transcona? What's going on, man?
No word of life at all. I feel very lonely here compared to my compatriots here or my colleagues who have actual guests to talk to. I'm out on a sidewalk, and yes, I was going to fact check you, but you beat me to it. 19 degrees, balmy, let me tell you, for the third week in September at night in Winnipeg. But no, we have seen this before. The Conservatives are going to let us into this event here at the Royal George, and us being media and people, all reporters from all the media outlets that are here at 9:30 our time, which is 10:30 where you are. And right now, it's just quiet quiet. As your folks were just telling us, just a couple of polls here. I want to do a little bit more fact checking though. I want to talk about this notion that Elmwood-Transcona is a working class environment. It sure is to some degree. We talked about this before earlier in the campaign. I looked at Statistics Canada data for this particular riding compared to all the other Winnipeg ridings, Winnipeg area ridings. This is the third most working class riding if you determine that on the basis of how many people are employed in manufacturing or equipment operations. Winnipeg North, Winnipeg Centre are more working class. Not surprising. The more surprising part is income, family income. Median family income here is higher to some degree, to some extent, or as high as some southern Winnipeg ridings, such as Winnipeg South, which is largely seen as an affluent riding. There has been a lot of development in Elmwood-Transcona in the last few years, a lot of new homes, a lot of homes that are expensive by Winnipeg standards, probably the biggest bargain basements ever in Vancouver and Toronto. This is becoming more affluent riding with the urban portion of it, with the developed portion of it spreading north and south. So that really changes things. It's really fascinating. Yes, union member Colin Reynolds, but also Leila Dance having worked for the Transcona Business Improvement Zone. So it's like both parties flipping sides. But the reality is this riding is very similar to other Winnipeg ridings. Right. And it might be exaggerated to the degree that the whole working class lunch bucket notion of everybody covered in grease coming home to work in their cars, that's probably a stereotype.
Okay, Bartley, that's good context. That's good to know. Hopefully they'll let you in. If not, let us know, and we'll Uber each you some soup and a thermos full of coffee if the temperature drops. While we wait,
they are giving away some chicken wings over here, but we have to say no.
Oh, okay. Well, that's too bad. All right, that's the CBC's Bartley Kivas waiting patiently outside Conservative headquarters in Elmwood-Transcona. Okay, we're going to show you the latest numbers from that riding. They are coming in now. We have 8 of 191 polls reporting, and Leila Dance is expanding her lead. It's up to 83 votes now over Colin Reynolds of the Conservatives. Liberals still well back at 28, the People's Party of Canada well back at just 11. Here's a look at how the vote share is breaking down. You can see there that the NDP sort of got out to a lead very early in the first couple of polls, and they have maintained it ever since. They've got just under 53% of the vote. The Conservatives are flirting with 40% and 4.4% for the Liberals, well back there. So again, early numbers, folks. It is a scoreboard kind of night, so we do want to show you those as they come in, but we don't want to draw any major conclusions from very preliminary data on just 8 of 191 polls. But the last time, Daniel Blakey, we've talked about him, Fred, he won this seat. He had 50% of the vote last time. Réjean Caron of the Conservatives at 28%. Anything you draw from what Bartley and Ian and Blake had to say and where the early numbers are going?
Yeah, for the numbers, I mean, it is early on, as you said, but the Conservatives are up 12 points from the last election. The Liberals are down 10 as well, which I think is an interesting number, and that's a trend to keep an eye on. Because obviously we're going to try to take these numbers and then put them into national numbers at some point and see what those trends mean for a general election. But just to, back to the MP there, Blake Desjardins, and there's this belief that the Conservatives are bringing, he said corporate money, and to Mel's point, he meant corporate donors. Pierre Poilievre and the team, they dominate with small donations as well. They really, really do a fine job on that through getting the small amounts in. And Poilievre has really turned his attention to fundraising, which Conservative Party leaders have always been involved in doing it, but he's actually doing fundraisers and getting out there every time he's going around touring and getting more people out, and it's paying off, and the war chest is getting bigger and bigger. I've never seen, no political party has had this amount of money before than the Conservative Party has, and they have a year to spend it. All 3 parties are going to spend the max in that writ period, that 36 days, but what the Conservatives can raise now gives them such a huge advantage.
Greg, what are your thoughts on all of that and what we've seen so far on the numbers from out in Winnipeg?
I was just thinking that in June of 23, there was the Portage-Lisker by-election. You had Candice Bergen on your show earlier today. And there was a lot of talk about the People's Party and how much impact they had. I think it was reflected, I think I've heard you say that when Jenny Byrne, who is the Conservative advisor, was doing podcasts, she was talking about their concern about the People's Party.
You needed to get that percentage of the vote back in the big Conservative tent, right?
And I believe Max Bernier ran in that by-election, got 17%. So we're not, obviously not the same part of Manitoba. But 2 elections ago, the People's Party in Elmwood-Transcona got a little over 1%, and in the last election, they almost got 6%. And it'll be interesting to see if the Conservatives have kind of dealt with the People's Party and like their moment in the sun is over, because I think it seems to be there was a reason why Max Bernier ran in Manitoba. There was a hope that they were going to get some sort of foothold. Fred, you may know more about this than me, but it'd be really interesting to see if they disappear as a political entity or they hang in at that 5%.
Okay. All right, Mel, any quick thoughts on what's going on? We're seeing some movement. We've got to just do some verification, but you're seeing the movement on the bottom of the screen of numbers from LaSalle. We just need to do a quick double check on things because things work a little bit different on a by-election night. That Portage-Lisgar that Greg talked about, that was mission smash the People's Party of Canada by Pierre Poilievre and Jenny Byrne to blow that up, discredit it, and consolidate what remnants you could get from it. Any thoughts on that and what we're seeing so far?
Yeah, maybe I'll touch a little bit on the war chest comments about how much money the Conservatives are raising and are able to spend in between. I think we really saw that play out in Elmwood-Transcona. Before the writ was dropped for the by-election, the money and the ads that were being pushed out on Jagmeet and on Jagmeet's deal with the Liberals, I think really showed how much money the Conservatives had, and almost to the point that's almost where folks were thinking that the NDP had the disadvantage because they were being talked about so much by Pierre Poilievre and his team. So it's definitely going to be something that the NDP and the Liberals are confronted with. Really in the next year, heading into the next one, they're able to put maybe a little bit of money behind ads, but it's just not comparable to the money that the Conservatives are able to use. And to your point, in the writ period, it's very different. But until then, it's
they can spend what they want until the election rules kick in, as long as they account for it and as long as it's legal. Okay, we do have first results from LaSalle-Émard-Verdun. And look at that, Craig Sauvé is in the lead very narrowly, just 4 votes ahead. Let me just call up the numbers here on my computer. It's only 1 poll, folks, out of 187, but you have the NDP there in first at 185. Louis-Philippe Sauvé of the Bloc Québécois is in second with 184. And Laura Palestini, the Liberals, who Justin Trudeau and his crowd really want to hold on to this seat, in third place at 114. Sarah Levitt is standing by at Liberal headquarters with a familiar face for the watchers of Power and Politics, Jonathan Kalis, former Quebec advisor to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. So Sarah, I'm curious to know how Jono is feeling with the Liberals in third place in the early numbers.
I was going to say it was a familiar face for you, David. So let's just go straight to him right now. What are you thinking as you see these very, very, very early results, but more about how this whole campaign went?
Yeah, I'm not gonna make any prognostications based on one polling box that's come out, but I think people here are, I'd say, cautiously optimistic, nervous. Obviously, I think everybody understands it's going to be a tight race. It's not going to be the race from 2021 or 2019. The riding we've talked about, I've heard the panel talking about through the evening that, once this riding went to the NDP, Paul Martin's old riding, but that's only part of the riding. The other part of the riding, Jean Lebert, it used to be called the Verdun side, 06, 08, 2011, were Bloc and NDP MPs won those campaigns. So that's much more recent. It's a mixed riding. Obviously, the borders have changed. David Lametti was a candidate, my law professor, so, I can tell you he's a star. But, somebody who went on to become Justice Minister. Obviously, it's hard to replace, and, people were surprised that he left, so there's that lingering. I guess we're just going to have to wait and see. It's too early to figure out what it means, because we don't know, one party's in the lead, I think, by a couple of votes. We'll see what that is, and then we'll prognosticate afterwards whose fault it is, what should have been done, what should have been done different.
Well, when you talk about fault, you said you were listening to the panel, so thank you, panel. And another thing that they were saying is, it means something to know that this is a three-way race, that it's Justin Trudeau's hometown where he himself has a riding. Many of his cabinet members, some of whom are here tonight. Just the fact that it's this close, what has changed in Montreal to allow this to have happened?
I don't think you could say you're surprised. Simply, we look at the polls across the whole country. It's not like this one riding is going to be an anomaly. Things are going to be closer everywhere. That's just normal. But, you know, I think what you've seen is a lot of people coming together, working hard in this riding. The turnout's been really, really good throughout the campaign. The candidate was chosen after the NDP candidate had already been on the ground for a couple of months, who has, you know, name recognition as well. So it was a challenge at the beginning getting started, but I think you've seen a lot of momentum trying to obviously keep an important riding, but I don't think we can read too much into it. We'll always try. We did that in Toronto, St. Paul's. We'll do that again here. But, you know, the mood of the electorate when it comes to a by-election, you can express anger at the government or frustration with the government. It doesn't have any concrete impact tomorrow in the House because it doesn't change the dynamic this one seat or these two seats tonight. So we'll all talk about the spin of what happens next in terms of when the election comes, but I don't think we should read too much into it in the immediate. Because in a general election, you know, let's see what turnout is. You may have a lot of people staying home, and then we'll read into that what we will.
All right, thank you very much. So Jonathan Callas there, he, of course, a former advisor to Justin Trudeau for Quebec. And back to you, David.
All right, Sarah. Thank you very much. Jono is a familiar face on Power and Politics. He's on the Power panel from time to time and always brings a fun perspective. I think we're going to show you more numbers now coming in from Elmwood-Transcona, which are coming in at a brisk pace, which I'm not used to on these by-election specials. There you go. Leela Dance, the trend continues. She has nearly 51% of the vote at this stage in the night. It's only 18 polls of 191, so just over 9%. But you can see with each successive poll, you are seeing the New Democrat growing their majority. They have a 157 vote lead, 150 vote lead right now. The numbers on my laptop are slightly ahead of the numbers you're seeing there on the screen. So the next set of numbers that come in, you'll see that growth even more. The Liberals are still well back there. Okay, so we are getting some numbers. I'm not having flashbacks, Greg, to what we had in Toronto St. Paul's, where 3 hours in, we were 1/3 of the way through the count. We even have some numbers from LaSalle-Émard-Verdun. We'll see where how quickly that one rolls in. Greg, your thoughts on what Jonathan had to say? You know, that you've got the Conservatives at 45% nationally. You see them up in the polls right around the country. You see the Liberals down, even in Quebec, which is one of the foundation things. They have slipped behind the block and even randomly in some polls. Tied with the Conservatives, even behind. Where do you think it is?
Look, I'm going to retread some ground here. I mean, this can't be a surprise. You know, it's funny how the carbon pricing came back into the media focus this week because we hadn't talked about it for a couple of months. All we've really talked about is polling and will he or won't he. It's the Hamlet aspect of politics. There was something that you and Rosie were chatting about earlier about in terms of the Quebec Liberal Party. And I was lucky enough in a previous job to have someone very involved with the Quebec Liberal Party. And I'll tell you, you talked about how leaky they are, but also, it's a very powerful element of the Liberal Party. They often knew things that the government was planning to do far in advance of other folks. It has been, for a long time, the truism in Canadian politics was the path to a majority was through Quebec. That's not necessarily the case in every election now, the way things that are split. But, tremendously important. And I'm glad Jonathan pointed out that, half people keep talking about Paul Martin's riding. Yes, half of it was Mr. Martin's riding. But also, it has gone orange, it has gone bloc as well. But, anyone to say that, these are mirrors. St. Paul's was a mirror held up to the Liberal Party. This is a mirror. The fact that, you have to work this hard is a tell. And again, governments, what did Chrétien say? The tide goes in, the tide goes out. This happens. The problem is when the people that support you wonder if everything that could be done is being done. And I alluded earlier, for example, to advertising. Mike Moffat, the economist, had pointed out on social media how the carbon pricing could have been packaged better, could have been tailored better so that people actually...
Big novelty checks is essentially what he was saying, and branded envelopes coming every quarter, right?
Yeah. The other thing I'd just say about LaSalle-Émard, I think there was 11,000 people that voted in advance, and there's only around 80,000 electors. I'm not sure you're going to get that strong a turnout. It does kind of concern me, and again, you have your big menu list of the number.
Do.
My favorite candidate in LaSalle-Émard is John, quote, the engineer Turmel, and he's a little bit down from the Sauves. There are only 2 Sauves. And
he's an independent, Greg.
Yeah, well, I'm shocked. I'm shocked. I know John. I've heard of John the Baptist, but not John the engineer. But I wish him well.
Okay, we've got new numbers from LaSalle-Émard that we want to show you here before we're going to go back to Winnipeg. Craig Sauve continues to have his lead. The NDP are now leading in both of these ridings, these by-elections we're seeing tonight. It is only a 10-vote lead. Sauve is leading Sauve because the Bloc Québécois, Louis-Philippe Sauve, also has the same last name. The Liberals, who desperately need to hold the seat, Laura Palestini, their candidate, is in 3rd place. This is only 2 polls of 187 reporting. We're going to continue to watch that. We have a slightly clearer picture in the Winnipeg riding of Elmwood-Transcona, where Leila Dance has a growing lead of 172 votes over Colin Reynolds of the Conservatives. The Liberal candidate, Ian McIntyre, yet to break 100. All night, we have been hearing that this is not just an NDP seat, it's also a Blakey seat. And as luck would have it, Ian Fraze is standing by with a Blakey. Ian.
That is correct. We were just talking. A lot of people call this a Blakey seat more than an NDP seat. You've heard this many times. When you hear that, what's your reaction to it?
Look, it was only a Blakey seat because we were campaigning on the issues that matter to working people, that the NDP promotes and cares about and fights for in Ottawa. So there's no question to me that a Blakey seat needs an NDP seat because of the things we fight for. And if you look provincially, whether it's Transcona or Elmwood or all sorts of parts of the riding have regularly returned NDP MLAs at the provincial level as well. So I think it speaks more to the issues that people care about and the issues that the NDP fight for than anybody's last name.
Early results have Leila Dance in the lead, popular vote just over 50%. It's still early, of course. How does that sound to you?
Really exciting. Leila's a great candidate. I know she's going to fight for the right things in Ottawa, so glad to see the vote coming in heavy for Leila at the beginning and hoping that carries right on through the evening. And I look forward to seeing Leila take a seat in the House of Commons.
In the last election that you were on the ballot, the margin of victory was 9,000. Nobody's expecting it to be that far apart this time around. Did you have any fears that, your resignation might have endangered the NDP's chances here in this riding?
Well, I remember the first time that I was on the ballot and I only won by 61 votes. So, I'm no stranger to close elections. I know it can be close here in Elmwood-Transcona, but we've been out talking about affordability, talking about healthcare, talking about the kinds of folks that people want to have in government, fighting for them in Parliament. And there's no question in my mind that what the NDP is fighting for resonates with a lot of people because it's making a tangible difference in their lives. Like the dental care program, for instance, where hundreds of thousands of Canadians already have been able to get in, have their teeth fixed in a way that they hadn't been able to before. And I remember in one of my first campaigns sitting in the living room of a woman at Transcona Place, which is a seniors home right in the heart of Transcona, and her telling me about the trials of pain and embarrassment that she suffered because she couldn't get her teeth fixed. I'm really proud to have been part of a caucus that helped bring relief to folks that are in that situation, and I know that when people are going into the ballot into the ballot box, so to speak, that those are some of the issues that they're thinking about, and they know that the NDP's been a champion for them.
The dismantling of the supply and confidence agreement, how has that influenced the race? Because I know you have been out campaigning with Leila Dance.
Yeah, I think the NDP has always been very clear that we're not buddies with the Liberals, but we wanted to be able to get them to do things. And I think everyone knew that would only last for so long. Jagmeet made the call to leave the supply and confidence agreement. I think there's still a willingness to bargain there, and we'll see what the fall brings. I'm no longer an insider when it comes to the supply and confidence agreement or what negotiations are happening now that it's over. But I know Jagmeet and I know the federal caucus, and I know that they're focused on actually getting things done. There's a lot of people in politics that spend their time complaining and yelling about things, but don't have a lot of real positive vision for how they would make things better. That's not true of Jagmeet Singh and the NDP caucus. They've been very clear about wanting to get tangible results for people. That's where their work is centered, and I don't think that's changed, whether they're in a supply and confidence agreement or not. They're going to continue to push the government of the day to get things done for people.
Now, you mentioned you're not an insider anymore. The House of Commons returned today. Did you miss any part of it?
Well, you know, that's a good question, Ian. There are things about the job that I do miss, and there are things that I don't. I'm really happy to be part of an exciting team here in Manitoba that's doing good work on behalf of Manitobans, and being able to contribute to that every day and getting to be home with my young sons and my wife at the end of the day has been a real privilege. So I'm honored to have the opportunity to make a contribution here, and looking forward to getting to watch some of my former colleagues and seeing them fight on behalf of Canadians, and looking even more forward to seeing Leela Dance join their ranks and be part of that caucus in Ottawa.
Daniel, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Back to you.
Okay, Ian, thank you very much. That's Ian Fraze with Daniel Blakey in Elmwood-Transcona, or the Blakey riding, as Alden Democrats like to call it in the run-up to this by-election. I want to show you the vote share. Daniel Blakey won this last time. He had a 9,000 nominal vote win, with 49.7% of the vote right there. You do see the NDP. Leela Dance has it up over 50.1%. I mean, if that holds, we'll have to call it a Leela Dance riding, Mel. But look at the second place numbers there. The Conservatives at 41.7%, the NDP well back at just 4%. These are the latest numbers from LaSalle-Émard-Verdun, where Craig Sauvé is opening up his lead there in early numbers. Look, this is still just 3 polls of 187, so hold your breath, folks. There were, how many people voted there? There was more than 11,000 people who voted in that riding in early voting. So we've got a lot of numbers to come there. We're going to check in with the CBC's chief political correspondent, Rosemary Barton. Rosemary, it's a by-election, and we're getting numbers at a brisk pace, at least in Elmwood-Transcona, and we're getting numbers in LaSalle-Émard-Verdun, where that massive ballot is a factor. What are your thoughts on what we're seeing so far at this stage of the night?
I mean, I think we're starting to see a trend line in Winnipeg, certainly, in favor of the NDP, and we're starting to see that open up a little bit. Again, early numbers. I think LaSalle-Émard-Verdun, I'm going to be much more reticent to say anything about where we are, just because there are so few ballots that have been counted. And I think that goes back then to your wonderful prop that your producers spent many hours.
They're a good team. They're a good team. They pulled that together.
Fantastic. Cobbling together there. You know, this is now the second time that this protest movement for electoral reform has used this tactic of submitting names on the ballot to get attention to the issue. And of course, any form of protest is allowed, and this is completely legal. I think the problem now becomes, though, at what point does the government, because the directive would have to come from the government to Elections Canada, at what point does the government need to intervene in some way in order to make this more efficient, let's say. And I'm not talking about, journalists staying up late. I'm talking about candidates waiting to find out what the results are because a handful of people are upset with the lack of electoral reform. I think that there probably will have to be a conversation at the political level about whether something has to be course corrected or changed so that this isn't taken advantage of every time there's a by-election. That said, part of the reason that people can submit their names for a by-election or for any ballot is about trying to make democracy open and fair. And so I think it's a fine line to walk here between trying to recognize people's right to protest and complain and put their name forward versus something that is, a legitimate part of the actual competition. Because we did think we were going to get results faster for this Montreal riding than we're getting them now, and it is taking a while again. So I think that has to be a real question that is put to cabinet ministers tomorrow. But in terms of the politics of it all, it definitely, in the riding of Montreal, seems to be a three-way race. It definitely seems that is the case.
Yeah, a three-way race. And look, to Rosie's point, I'm going to show you this again. This is comically large. This was created by the Power and Politics team. This is life-size. This is an actual replica. It is 12 inches by 38 inches. That's the ballot you get when you go in to vote in LaSalle-Émard-Verdun, or if you were one of the 11,190 whatever people who voted in the early voting. and Elections Canada has to deal with this. This is like sitting down in a chain restaurant and getting like either a placemat to color on or a giant novelty sort of menu. But Fred, you know, it's kind of what we see, and I know you talked last time. Just quick thoughts on what they can do about this as political parties. Like, do they need to make some changes to stop 91 names from getting on a ballot, or is this just democracy and live with it, folks? It's a bit difficult.
It's tough because there was a court case that allows this to happen. Previously, you had to put a $1,000 deposit down and get X amount of signatures.
Right.
There was a charter challenge on that, and it's removed that. So now you can just get your name on a ballot. You still may need a signature requirement, but you don't have to put the money down, which makes it easy for a group like this to go around and get 91 or, well, 80 some people to join in. And that it makes it tough. At the end of the day, though, they're doing this for a by-election. It is super annoying. It is a problem. But in a general election, they may do it again, but it'll just be one of the 343 ridings, I think, that they'd be able to affect. Now, maybe they can get a groundswell, and maybe they can get more people doing this. Then it would certainly be a big problem. But again, the courts have kind of tied the government's hands here.
Right. I mean, look, and critics would say they need to find a way to stop this, to stop it from being inconvenient. They would say you need to change the system to make it more fair because, you know, we are protesting what we consider to be a challenge of this particular thing. Okay, I think we have some more numbers we want to show you. We hear that Laura Palestini is making her way to the Liberal headquarters in LaSalle-Émard-Verdun. We're going to go there when we see her and when she starts speaking. But first we want to show you. Oh, she's talking now. Are we going to go there now, Tyler? Yes? All right, this is Laura Palestini, the Liberal candidate in LaSalle-Émard-Verdun.
On termine ce soir ensemble. J'ai une immense gratitude pour ta présence. Merci beaucoup. Alors, bonsoir à tous, amis bénévoles.
Good evening, all you volunteers.
Merci d'être réunis ici ce soir
Thank you
pour
for
célébrer
gathering this
nos
evening
efforts
to celebrate
semaine et vous
the
tenir
efforts we've made these last few weeks
de cette élection partielle.
and to hear the results of this by-election. This is really testimony of our dedication to our community, our resilience, and our dedication to make LaSalle-Émard-Verdun a better place for everyone.
Thank you for gathering here tonight to celebrate our collective efforts and stand united together with me. This is not just an election night. It is a testament of our shared commitment to our community, our resilience, and our undeniable dedication to making LaSalle-Émard-Verdun a better place for all. Alors que je regarde cette salle,
As
je
I
vois
look
les
around the
visages
room, I see the faces of extraordinary people who work tirelessly. Long nights, early mornings, knocking on doors, making calls, organizing events. Each of you played a critical role in this campaign. And I cannot say just how profoundly grateful I am for all your tireless work. Your dedication and your belief are very precious. You are the best people in the world. To the volunteers in this campaign, your dedication is incredible. Your commitment to a progressive, liberal government is incredible. And you spent your evenings, your weekends, and your mornings volunteering. Your contributions brought us closer to our goal. I want to thank all the communities and all the people who came forward to organize events. It was a privilege to speak to you and to share ideas with you.
Mi rendono immensamente orgogliosa. Oggi, con immenso piacere, vorrei ringraziare la comunità italiana per loro sostegno innegabile. Siete meravigliosi e insieme siamo forti e inseparabili. Sono onorato di fare parte di questa comunità eccezionale et patriotica. Tout au long de cette campagne, nous avons écouté les préoccupations des citoyens.
Throughout this campaign, we listened to people's concerns: affordability, housing, the environment. We had important conversations that were frank and sincere about the future of LaSalle-Émard-Verdun. We talked to our neighbors, heard their stories, and made connections that will be the basis of our future. Your dedication amplified our voices, united people, and now we have a shared desire to continue to build a better future. Thanks to your efforts, our message resonated. And perhaps tomorrow morning early, we will hear what the people of LaSalle-Émard-Verdun want as their Member of Parliament. Once again, I want to express my sincere thanks to each and every one of you for your enthusiasm and your energy, which were contagious. You reminded me of the reason why I decided to get involved in public service right from the start and to make a difference in people's lives.
I want to extend my deepest thanks to each and every one of you for your enthusiasm, your energy. It has simply been contagious. You all made a difference in this campaign, and this experience is undoubtedly unforgettable for me. I am truly blessed. Thank you very much. Grazie mille. Thank you. Merci.
Okay, that was Laura Palestini, the Liberal candidate in the Montreal riding of LaSalle-Émard-Verdun, speaking at her headquarters 1 hour and 9 minutes, it is now, after the polls closed. We're nowhere near the final results there. We have very few numbers, actually, from LaSalle-Émard-Verdun. We're going to show you, I believe, what we do have right now. The NDP is in first place in this seat, which was held by David Lametti. Craig Sauvé, the municipal councillor, is running there, a narrow lead of 22 votes over Louis-Philippe Sauvé, who's running for the Bloc Québécois. You can see Laura Palestini there in third. The vote share, this is pretty tight. The NDP only got 14% last time. They right now have 33%. The Bloc is up from 8% to 30%, and the Liberals, which got 43% last time, are down at 22%. Greg, not enough there for the CBC decision desk to make any kind of a call. Was that the Laura Palestini decision desk making a call, thanking people for their enthusiasm and their energy this early in the night while they're in third place? I'm not calling it a concession speech, but it felt like a concession speech. What did you make of what we just saw?
I thought it was a curious choice this early. The four of us did a by-election in June that went much later, and there were speeches like that because I think, at a certain point when it started becoming the next day, maybe they wanted to send people home.
Right.
And again, this is where good advance work comes in, because there should be somebody whispering in your ear. You knew that she was on her way to headquarters. What the purpose of it was, maybe it was, perhaps to buck up volunteers and to encourage them to stick around. I wasn't really hearing that.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so look, the polls are closed. There's nothing anybody can say or do or share that will influence the results. I mean, are you hearing anything from your parties? Mel, are you hearing anything about that particular race? We've got a trajectory now in Elmwood-Transcona that Rosie talked about that suggests pretty good night so far for the NDP. It's moving in the right direction for them. What are you hearing about LaSalle-Émard-Verdun right now?
Yeah, I'm hearing that it's tight and unclear who pulls this off. The NDP's feeling good about their ability to pull out vote. We've got a very slight lead very, very early on in the night. If that's where it ends at the end of the night, I'll be super pleased. But
you're like Donald Trump. You want to stop the count
yeah,
right
exactly.
now, right? You want to take these seats.
Both parties, let's stop, go home, done. We're good. Looks like the NDP's winning the next general election. But anyways, yeah, no, obviously too soon to tell. Folks are feeling good. Like I mentioned earlier, they were feeling good about the feeling on the ground, knew it was going to be a hard one to pull off. And yeah, I guess we'll see. Regardless, if it stays at around this, if it stays at around, 30, even high 20% of the vote, that's a huge win for the NDP in this Montreal riding. So yeah, let's see it continue to trend in this direction.
Okay, Fred, your quick thoughts or what you're hearing they're going to bring in Rosie again?
Well, the numbers in Elmwood-Transcona are interesting. Voter turnout looks very, very low. But the advance polls had over 10,000, and I'm told the Conservatives did very, very well on that front.
Yeah, so this is what I do not know, and Control Room, if you can find out. When are we going to get the advance polls at the end in Elmwood-Transcona? These are advance polls? These are not. These are not advance polls. Key to hear all the words when you're getting given information. Yes, so this is the thing. So this is why this could take a while, even though the numbers are coming in fast, because with the significant volumes of north of 10,000 in each of these particular races, if those come at the end in Elmwood-Transcona, Fred, and you've heard the Conservatives have done well, the early NDP trajectory could look good, but that could all change once the early voting comes in. Rosemary, what are your thoughts? I don't know if you were listening in and heard all of what Laura Palestini had to say. She spoke in English, French, and Italian. We did not have translation for the Italian. Our apologies there. But I don't know. It's early, and it didn't sound super raw. It wasn't that Al Pacino speech the Liberal MPs all watched in caucus out in Nanaimo.
Yeah, I mean, it was curious. It was curious. It did not sound like someone who thought they were going to win the night. Let's put it that way. And I certainly take all the caveats about early polls reporting. But let's be clear, the Liberals don't want to be in third place, even if it's early polls reporting. Like that's not great. They need to start catching up pretty quickly here. But it did sound a little like resignation from the candidate. We certainly heard early on that they were having trouble finding a candidate for this riding. I don't know if you talked about it while I was moving around between studios and hits, but one of the factors that we thought might play out here is Gaza and Israel. The NDP candidate put the Palestinian flag prominently on some of his flyers and had a very clear position on what needed to happen in Gaza, that things needed to stop and people needed to be saved. The Liberals, of course, as the governing party, have had to walk a much finer line between supporting Israel's right to defend itself and trying to help the Palestinians in Gaza, and that has created tensions both in the party and in the caucus. I don't know whether that's what we're going to, get as a message here in this riding, but I think it's something to consider that maybe there's some of that. That is playing out. We'll see, I guess. But I'm not sure why she gave that speech, to be honest. Maybe it's just lack of experience, I'm not sure. But it certainly didn't sound like someone who felt like she was going to be jumping for joy at the end of the night, did it?
No, it certainly did not. And, Greg, earlier on Power and Politics, when we spoke to Sarah Levitt just around 5 o'clock, she was outside the location where they are now, and where Laura Palestini is now, and outside were pro-Palestinian protesters. Obviously, the government of the day bears the brunt of this particular issue, but we saw stories throughout this campaign, my colleagues Evan Dyer and Rafi Boudjikanian, about ministerial staffers, Muslims who work for the Liberal government refusing to work on this particular by-election. Now, I don't know if they're French-speaking or connections in Quebec, or if they're from all over Canada, how much mechanically that might have affected things in that race. But it speaks to the challenges and the issue set that, on top of all the conversation about the polls and the Prime Minister, that's stacking up against an incumbent government in a difficult time in urban seats, because it was an issue the other way in Toronto, St. Paul's, as it is in Montreal, it seems.
Yeah, and on the staffer issue, within the Ottawa bubble, worked and know a lot of former staffers. It's one that we found, I would say everyone that I spoke to about it found it very strange. I think the letter wording was that they could not in good conscience campaign, and what that means is that staffers are often asked to do hours in a boiler room, make phone calls, that kind of stuff. Well, let's be really clear here. ministerial staffers at the federal level are very well remunerated. And so, you're paid, to quote Mulrooney, you dance with what brought you. The reason you have those jobs is because of that government. And you're going to kind of poke them in the eye and hope that they lose, a by-election. It does, this is what I really get, that those of us who are not, paid to be involved or anything, it makes us, incredibly annoyed because
you got to be all in, essentially.
Why are you there?
Yeah.
So that's part of it as well. Look, just some math, which is funny coming from me. We're at 2% of the polls reporting.
You did this to me in Toronto St. Paul's, and I almost wept. I want to keep going. Keep going.
I have
keep
hope.
going.
I have hope. But what's funny is, as Rosie and I both use the same word, curious about the timing of that speech. It seems to be very early to do kind of that speech. An hour and a quarter in, Elmwood-Transcona hit the 1/3 part, which took us 3 hours to do the last time. So you see the difference with not having the longest ballot, folks.
Yeah, there's 6 candidates on the ballot in Elmwood-Transcona as opposed to the phone book that is on the ballot there, right? So you can see
they're at 30, and again, I haven't checked my phone in about 5 minutes, but in
42% of the votes are in now.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So they're flying along.
Yeah. Okay. Before we bring in Fred, do we have new numbers we want to show there, gang? Do we have? Because it is flying in Elmwood-Transcona at a pretty brisk pace from what we're used to. You can see Leela Dance is still there with a lead now of, 288 votes. My old eyes can't quite see that. I'll look at my laptop. The Conservatives are in second place with 44% of the vote. Colin Reynolds, this is a 2-candidate race. Okay, I'm not going to read past Colin Reynolds unless he moves into first, and then I'll read Leela Dance. But look at that. Look at those numbers. The Liberals way back at 10 cents on the dollar compared to the others. You got the vote share there of 47.9% for the NDP, 44% for the Conservatives, and just 4% for the Liberals there. So look, this is going to be a tight race. As Fred, you were saying earlier, there's a significant advanced vote from that riding. The number's 10,032 in Elmwood-Transcona out of 70,000 people who are eligible to vote there. So that obviously is more than what we have so far put together. So, I mean, that is not an insignificant amount. Going back to what we were just talking about with LaSalle-Émard-Verdun, I don't think the Liberals have imposed any consequences for ministerial and political staffers refusing to campaign because of their moral objections over the way the government has handled Gaza. What do you make of that? I wasn't here when Stephen Harper was Prime Minister. I can't imagine that having been, you start to laugh because you're there.
Those people wouldn't be either.
They wouldn't be employed,
if something like that happened. Look, not only are they refusing to campaign, they publicly went out and attacked the very government that employs them. They are liberal ministerial staffers. I know they're paid by the taxpayer, but their job
liberals.
is to be supportive of the elected government. And to do this is just, it's absolutely absurd. And I joked when this story first broke about how we're seeing Trudeau losing ground in every single demographic in Canada. Never thought he'd lose ground in the Liberal staffer demographic as well.
No, that should be a safe one.
It should be.
I know Jean Chrétien had issues with the Paul Martin Liberal demographic, but it seems that no more hyphenated Liberals. That should be okay, right?
Yeah. No, this is a party that was on its deathbed before Trudeau became leader. They were in third place for the only time in Canadian history. The NDP were looking to be in a spot to replace them permanently as the alternative. And Trudeau brought them back to life. He brought them back to government 3 elections in a row. They are wobbly again. And if these trends keep going, what we're seeing in these by-elections, if the polls keep going, we go into this election, this could be end of days for the Liberal Party of Canada as we know it. This is a party, if you look at all the pretenders who could replace Trudeau, there's no one strong there. If the NDP could, maybe get a good leader.
No offense, but I've heard this before, and I heard that exactly around that same time. I remember people coming up to me and asking me which party I was going to join, the Conservatives or the New Democrats.
Yeah, but
which is
Trudeau
great because
in.
it means
you don't have another Trudeau.
Yeah, both love me.
But
so
you don't have another Trudeau.
But I mean, Peter C. Newman wrote a book about the death of the Liberal Party. There's a book.
The Big Shift. We need a sequel, right?
The long term. The Conservatives are going to win. So I know Stephen Harper did want to put his boot on the neck of the Liberal Party and end it, and it didn't work. But yeah, it's tough times.
Okay, we're going to take quick break from that conversation because I want to go back to Laura Palestini's headquarters, where Sarah Levitt is standing by at the Liberal headquarters. And Sarah, we're all trying to figure out why Laura Palestini gave that speech when she gave that speech. You got any insight? What's the vibe and the reaction at the headquarters after that?
Well, David, I could tell you one thing. As much as she was energetic in her speech, she was also energetic in leaving the party. She immediately left as soon as she gave that speech. She did a few steps saying thank you to the volunteers, turned around, went out the door, and of course we followed her. Thought maybe she was just getting some fresh air. No, she got drove away. This doesn't really work English, but our colleagues at Radio-Canada have saying that what she did was elle a sauvé, which means she. But sauvé has particular meaning in this case because the facing are both sauvés. So that's
okay.
At least it works in French there, but yeah, that's what happened here.
Okay, Sarah, you were breaking up a lot during that, so I am unclear on what your colleagues at Radio-Canada said and how it translates into English. Do you want to try just one more time? So hopefully the signal will hold and we can actually hear it. So just take a shot. Let's see if it works.
There has been some signal issues, but we'll try again. They are saying elle a sauvé, and sauvé means she escaped. Of course, it has particular meaning here because Sauvé are her two opponents. We have Louis-Philippe Sauvé and we have Craig Sauvé. So that from our colleagues at Radio-Canada.
Okay, that was great. And we got a pun in that worked in both official languages, so that was fantastic. I'm being told by one of the Liberals who was there saying that it is not a concession. It was a thank you to volunteers and to get on television before everyone goes to sleep. So that will give you a sense of maybe what the Liberals are expecting in terms of what the numbers, how slow they're going to come in. We're going to give you the latest we have, though. That's the latest from Sarah Levitt at the Liberal headquarters. Here's the latest data. The Sauvés, the Escape Brothers, they are in first and second place. Craig Sauvé for the NDP has a 32-vote lead over Louis-Philippe Sauvé from the Bloc Québécois, 34 to 30% of the vote. The Liberals, Laura Palestini in third place, still there at 22%. Now look, this is 5 of 187 polls, right? Only 2.7% of polls reporting. You can see the trend line here on the vote share as we look at that next. Craig Sauvé, the NDP have been in first place all night in both ridings. So they've been in first place there in LaSalle-Émard-Verdun. But again, because of the sheer size and scale of that ballot, you can see the trend line there. It's like a stock. The NDP are at 34.4% with the Bloc at just under 31%. Because of the size and scale of this comically large ballot in LaSalle-Émard-Verdun, it's coming in slow. We have just 2.7% of the vote from there, and we are at just about 50% in Elmwood-Transcona. So that gives you an idea of how quick it's coming in. Mel, your thoughts on this? Maybe we're reading too much into Laura Palestini. Maybe we're not. But she left, and right now it is Craig Sauvé still holding onto a narrow lead.
Right. Well, I don't think that she's still in the room, right? So
nope, she's gone.
So she's gone. I think if she's still in the room and she's, mingling with folks who have supported her throughout this campaign, it's one thing. But to be out of the room, gone, is another. I also think the tone of the speech wasn't to your point, like it wasn't like, this is so great, thanks so much, can't wait to see what the results was. It was,
we're going to win LaSalle-Émard-Verdun and see you in Ottawa? I didn't hear that, right?
Every single thing that you say when you lose, except for we'll see the results in the morning. That's the only kind of caveat that's different than what we saw. And of course, for folks who may not totally understand how this works, typically you would get information from your volunteers on what your polling kind of looks like, because they're able to see which folks have voted that are your voters, or you're not your voters, or you think are your voters. So they would have a good idea of who came in and who didn't. Again, if she had just stayed in that room, I think it's one thing. The fact that she's gone, to me, is what concession speech sounds like. And again, to your point, too soon to call, but what we're seeing right now is a bit of a collapse of the Liberal candidate in both those ridings. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out as more votes come in, and if that trend stays. Because if it does, that's a big problem for the Liberals.
You know, Greg, just to pick up on your sort of Mark Twain rebuttal that the reports of their demise have been greatly exaggerated. We have seen books written in the past about the end of the Liberal Party. There's op-eds in the Globe and Mail this weekend that it looks like it's all over. Making absolutely certain predictions in politics post-2016, I think, is kind of crazy. Trump changed everything in terms of how movements go. But look at this now. Like, no one expected the Liberals to be anywhere in Elmwood-Transcona. Third right now, early. If it stays if they end up in third place in a Montreal riding, that's a pretty grim omen after losing Toronto St. Paul's.
Yeah, and look, I'm glad that somebody wrote to you and did an explanation, but you did it after the fact. I mean, we consume a lot of American politics in Canada. We consume a lot of Canadian politics. You know, we've just gone through, you know, a summer in the U.S. with big festivals for each of the big parties, and these things are timed and, you know, prepared. And again, I get it. You know, perhaps it'd be a smart thing to realize that based on St. Paul's, the people that are covering it might have some time to fill. But that's great. You tell a producer in Montreal that you're going to do this and what's going on, instead of this. No one will remember this tomorrow. Like we won't make that big a deal of it, I think. But I mean, for a lot of people, if they want to run again, you want to take every advantage that you can for, you know, some attention and trying to hit it out of the park. Again, it's a bit confusing, and you know, it's an unnecessary narrative that we, you know, are talking about. Again, the polls are closed. I don't think it's that big a deal. I don't think people will be remembering it a week from now, but you know, people in that headquarters might remember it.
Totally.
And you know, when somebody wants to seek another nomination or run for another level, and again, I don't want to write the ending of tonight just yet, but not necessarily as an old media advance guy the way I would have liked to have seen it going.
Yeah, and just so you know, nobody reached out to me to try to spin me. I just texted someone and said, hey, what's up with
What's
that?
the deal?
'Cause it's like, no, don't think it's that. And, you know, maybe knowing they're in for a long night, it's a way to go there, Fred, I don't know, and make a connection and say, and for those of you watching at home, Fred Delory, former Conservative campaign manager, Greg Cochrane, former Liberal ministerial staffer, and Melanie Richer, former communications director for the federal NDP. And I'm David Cochrane. I'm the host of Power in Politics, and we're here on a special Canada Votes edition of our program as we bring you the poll-by-poll results of two key by-elections, one in Winnipeg and Elmwood-Transcona, a seat held by the NDP, where they are being challenged by the Conservatives, and LaSalle-Émard-Verdun, which is the seat that may have the biggest shockwaves depending on how it goes, a seat long held by the Liberal Party of Canada. This seat, former seat of former Justice Minister David Lametti, who left politics after being shuffled out of cabinet a little over a year ago in an attempt to put a refreshener on the Liberal government. And right now the NDP is in first place, Craig Sauvé in that seat, the Bloc Québécois in second, and the Liberal candidate running in third. Fred, just your thoughts on what we're seeing and where we are and what we've heard.
Yeah, well, the speech was odd. I agree with everyone that, you know, her going in and delivering it isn't that big a deal, but the fact you leave after. Usually when you've been campaigning for the last 36 days with people, you know, I would recommend candidates don't go until you know the results, win, lose, or draw.
Right.
Go in then. If you do go early, and if you want to address them, you do it, but you don't walk out right after you said anything. It seems strange. It seems defeatist.
Yeah, the next time we give numbers, I'm going to take off and just get out of here. And I'll see you guys in the morning when we actually know the results, right? Okay, we're going to check in. We're going to check in with Alison Northcott, who is at the Bloc headquarters in Montreal. Alison, we saw the Liberal candidate show up and give a speech thanking people that people saw maybe as a concession. What's happening at the Bloc Québécois headquarters in Montreal?
Still a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of anticipation. They're really watching these results come in quite slowly. They've got, you know, the Elections Canada page up on a screen. They're refreshing anytime there's some new numbers. Some excitement so far because it is such a tight race so far, but it is, as you have been saying, very early days. But I have with me here a former candidate for the Bloc Québécois in the 2021 election, Patrick O'Hara. What are you making so far? How are you feeling about this night so far?
Well, it's going to be a very close race. The Bloc candidate, the team, and the whole Bloc family really worked hard on the ground the last couple of weeks. Made it an honest campaign, a positive campaign. promoting the gains that the Bloc are going to bring for this community and Quebec.
And we know that this is a Liberal stronghold, but in these early results, a very tight race between the NDP and Bloc Québécois. What do you think it is that's potentially pushing voters towards the Bloc or towards the NDP?
Majority, but
what's happening is that people are realizing that there is an option in Quebec of a party that's fighting, and and it's essential. And Arlie's been saying it all along. Is if it's good for Quebec, we're there. If it's not good for Quebec, we're not. So this community is also probably fed up of the bickering going back and forth between the Conservative and the Liberals. A point to be staying positive, staying focused on what our gains, what we want for Quebec, and we're going to by playing an honest and positive campaign.
And one thing about the Bloc is that they only have members in Quebec. They're not out to form the government. How do you convince voters that it's worth it to vote for the Bloc in a situation like
the Bloc counties or areas that were elected? They're getting gains. I mean, you take a look at what's happening in La Prairie with Alain Terrien, who's the Bloc leader. He's passing more projects there. He's getting more for his community than any previous MP. So it's all about how do you get to Ottawa? How do you work within the confines of the Parliament for your town and for your people or for your circumscription. So to me, it's all about go and represent your riding. Our job and is to represent our people in Ottawa and not represent Ottawa in our ridings.
And you obviously experienced a very tight race in 2021. So do you expect it to be a long night here tonight?
Yeah, I think it's myself losing by after recount in 21. After weeks of being able to spend time in Ottawa tonight and probably into tomorrow maybe. I think it's going to be very close, probably within 500 votes.
Thank you very much, Patrick O'Hara. He's a former candidate, Bloc Québécois, in the last general election in 2020. A lot of anticipation here, a lot of nervous energy, I'd say, as people continue to wait for these results to come in.
Okay, Alison, thank you so much. That's the CBC's Alison Northcott at Bloc Québécois. I don't know if we call it headquarters or it's an election night space, party central, who knows, depending on how it goes. She's right. The numbers are coming in a little bit slow in LaSalle-Émard-Verdun. But, it doesn't seem to be a Toronto-St. Paul's situation, gang. We are getting some numbers there. I don't know if we want to put those up on the screen as we get going along, if we can do a catch-up on where we are with things, because I think to get a sense of the trend line, to get a sense of where things are, certainly in LaSalle, where we have we have had a lead change in LaSalle, according to the numbers that I have on my screen. Louis-Philippe Sauvé has moved into first place ahead of Craig Sauvé. It's a 21-vote lead, so it's very narrow at a very early stage. There are 13 polls reporting out of 187, so 7% of the vote is in, and the Bloc Québécois has moved ahead of the NDP by just 21 votes. The Liberals still a fair bit back in third place, but look at what's happening with the vote share there, folks. If we're going to go to that next, you're seeing it all tightening. The Liberals were well back at just like 22% the last time we checked in on the numbers in this riding, but look at this. You've got 29.9, 28.9, and 26.3. I was speaking to someone today. The Liberals have gained as a percentage share, so maybe Laura Palestini did rally the troops in that speech. I was told by someone today, Mel, I'll go to you here, that all outcomes were possible in LaSalle-Émard-Verdun. You had a probability of being first, a probability of being third, and you could apply that to sort of all three parties. Look, still a long way to go, but what do you make of what you're hearing and what we're seeing, at least in the publicly available numbers there?
Right. Yeah, that is totally what we were hearing, and because it seemed so close, especially in the little bit of polling that we saw, it is a little bit too hard to tell. And because it's a by-election, you also have to account for the fact that there is less people who show up to vote because it is a by-election. So are you able to mobilize all your folks? the Bloc able to mobilize all their votes. They're usually better at these by-elections because of that protest vote that typically in Quebec goes to the Bloc. Liberals, will they be able to mobilize their vote because folks are disappointed with the Prime Minister, because they're disappointed with the party? Maybe not as much. So that's totally, I think, what we're seeing. But something that I noticed that was actually quite interesting, and I think it just changed again, so sorry if it is wrong, is the Conservatives are doing better in LaSalle with 9.9% than the Liberals are in Elmwood with 4.5%. Which I think if you would have said to me even just a few days ago, I wouldn't have believed it. So that to me is a picture of how that riding and how Winnipeg is going as well.
Well, Mel, the Liberals have surged to 4.6% of the vote since you said that. So we don't want to shortchange the governing party in Elmwood-Transcona. But, you know, Fred, I got a question. We did put out the call to ask at CBC.ca. And Joseph asked about Montreal. He goes, I know the Conservatives are not considered in the race, but I am wondering what would be considered a good result for them in this by-election. Because, you know, the island of Montreal, not exactly a hotbed of Conservative support in past elections. They're sitting there, they're flirting with double digits right now at 9.9%. What would be a good number for them? And does it help or hurt? Who does it help or hurt if the Conservatives are an impact in the vote?
Good question. So in the last election, we got 7.5% in that riding. So this one is different, though, where it's a three-party race. So when you have that, our vote should actually have gone down quite a bit. But we're hearing it's going up.
It is.
Over that. So that's a very good sign that people are still willing to go out and vote Conservative when there's no chance of winning this particular seat at this particular time. And you have three other options that could win. So anything over 7.5, I think, is obviously a good sign for this one.
It's very early on this, and not to like throw an endless pile of percentages at you, but look, the Bloc are up just under 8% at this point. The NDP up 9.5%. The Liberals are down 16.6%. The Conservatives, as Fred was saying, up 2.4%. The Greens are down 1.4%. The People's Party of Canada are down 3.1%. I don't know if that is maybe what is going on there in terms of that consolidation of things. But right now in LaSalle-Émard-Verdun, we do have the Bloc Québécois. They have moved into first place. The NDP are still in first in LaSalle-Émard-Verdun. We're going to go to Ian Fraze, who is there. He's at the NDP headquarters. I believe he's standing by with NDP strategist Leslie Turnbull in Elmwood-Transcona in Winnipeg.
Yes, that's correct. A 40-year strategist and pollster for the NDP. Not at all, not at all. That's the right answer. Now, a role that you played in the Layla Dance campaign has been local messaging. How have you made the NDP messaging resonate here in Elmwood-Transcona?
Well, I think what we've done is we've taken the leader's message, Jagmeet's message, in the House of Commons around affordability, protecting public health care, trying to help people with their everyday bills related to food and housing, and show people that we care and we can be relied on to fight for them. And that's what they want, is they want to sit in their corner to fight for their future and their kids' future.
Was there a particular aspect of that you sort of tailored it to this riding? As we've talked about throughout the night, this is a real working class riding.
Yeah, it's a working class riding, but it's also a riding that's grown a lot in terms of new housing. There's quite a bit of new immigration, new Canadians living here now. It's not quite the same as it was 20 years ago, and but the concerns people have are basically the same. It's, you know, middle class people feeling they're being squeezed. They're worried about their kids' future. They're worried about, can they pay their bills? And they look around and say, you know, who cares about that and who gets it, who understands? And I think Jagmeet has really resonated with them.
Now, we should say, the polls coming in right now, NDP's lead has grown throughout the night here in Elmwood-Transcona. Advanced polls, that still hasn't come in. How do the advanced polls look, based on your estimation?
I don't know how they look because I haven't counted them, obviously, but we really tried to poll for the advance really hard, so we should have at least our proportion of the advance poll. It's something we've learned over the years, and especially in an election like this, which is, as a by-election, relatively low profile. So making sure that the people we've identified as supporting us get out, particularly in the advance polling, is really important.
For people that have driven through this riding, they saw the Conservative signs that really tried to remind voters that the NDP propped up the Liberal government for 2 years. How did that alter your party's strategy here in the riding?
Well, I think we have to say that what we achieved through that agreement is starting to really help ordinary people. Dental care, more investment in housing. There are specific benefits, tangible benefits that people can take advantage of. There's a significant seniors population in this riding, and so far they've been one of the main beneficiaries of the dental plan. So I think people see that.
But I guess the Conservatives were trying to paint it as a negative. Would you say over the campaign you guys have been on the offense then on that regard?
I think we've been on the offense, but I think we've also been in the offense in saying that Pierre Poilievre is pursuing policies that are going to help corporate Canada. The Conservatives in Manitoba pursue those same policies. He's a man who has a three-figure salary. He's got a great pension. He started in politics when he was in his 20s. And he's not really saying that Canadians should have the same benefits as him. You know, the same pension protection, the same health care protection. And I think people see a bit of a disconnect.
And then casting the confidence and supply agreement, casting vote on the carbon tax. Did those two decisions, I guess, what was the stuff that was happening here in Elmwood, that influence those two decisions in any way?
Sure, because they're decisions made by the federal caucus. From what I've heard, the caucus decided that they could out of that agreement, that the Liberal government wasn't taking initiatives felt would help people, and it was time to sort of go away and start fighting for what people care about, which food prices, housing prices, making sure that health care is there when they did. In the last provincial election, health care was the principal issue. And there's all kinds of evidence that Poilievre and the Conservatives would cut health care, and people know that.
All right, Leslie Turnbull, 40-year plus strategist and pollster.
I've been 50 years, so I had to, jump in.
Back to you in the studio.
Okay, Ian, thank you so much. All right, as you were talking, some more numbers came in on Elmwood-Transcona. We want to show you the latest data that we have. The NDP are still in first place with Leila Dance with 5,777 votes. She has a 545 vote lead over Colin Reynolds of the Conservatives. The vote share, though, is tightening up. It's 48.2%. For the NDP, and you can see the Conservatives, you can see how narrow it is, at least in terms of numbers. They're sitting at just below 44% of the vote share, which is well up from the 28% they got in the last election. Essentially what you're seeing is the NDP vote share, at least at this stage of the night, and we believe we're getting some of the advanced polls coming in now. We have 122 of 191 polls reporting. So 64% of the vote, though we still have not been able to make a projection on how we think that's going to go. But essentially, to give you a sense of it, the NDP vote share is holding, the Conservative vote share is surging, and the Liberal vote share is quite a bit down. Are we going to show LaSalle next? Okay, we're going to show the LaSalle numbers next, and look at that. That is tightening up, and the Liberals are making a move. You have the Bloc Québécois, Louis-Philippe Sauvé. He is in first place, but only by 60 votes. As Laura Palestini, who gave that speech a little while ago, has moved into second place and up almost 6 percentage points in terms of vote share. Craig Sauvé, who started the night in the pole position, is now in third at 1,131. And what you're seeing there in the vote share, folks, is that the first place Bloc are at 30% of the vote, the second place Liberals at 28.6%, and the third place NDP at 26.6%. I was speaking to someone earlier today who works on elections for the Liberals, who said that, look, you may see a situation in this riding where first to third, it's all within 3 to 4 percentage points, and everybody could finish first, second, or third based on where that is going to go. So look, we have 20 of 187 polls reporting in LaSalle-Émard-Verdun, just under 11% of the vote. So still a long way to go there. We're getting closer to critical mass in Elmwood-Transcona, but we're not there. But you know who is there? Bartley Kivas, and he's indoors, folks. They let him in. Bartley Kivas is inside at the Conservative election location tonight. I can see my big bald head on the screen there behind you. Bartley, tell us what's happening in there other than a bunch of Conservatives watching the CBC.
Well, they're watching the CBC here tonight because we are doing the show. House rules are that I'm not to talk to anyone. I have seen former St. Boniface, MP Shelley Glover. She's here. People here are in a relatively good mood tonight. I'm having trouble hearing in and out, but I know you're talking about the advance polls because Conservatives traditionally do much better, or at least significantly better than other parties in the collection of the advance polls and getting people out. People are not going to be too worried here. I did speak to somebody earlier via text on the Conservative side who they still think it's going to be a long night. So there isn't a celebratory atmosphere here, but nobody seems to be too dismayed just yet by what they're seeing.
Okay, Bartley, can I get some clarification? House rules is you're not allowed to talk to anybody, as in you can be in there, you can do a live shot, you can talk to me, but you can't go ask anybody there for their thoughts and opinions on the night?
We're just being told no interviews.
Okay. All right. Well, if that changes, please let us know, because we would love to hear some reaction from Conservatives in Winnipeg.
As would I. I'm sure there are some very friendly people in here, but I'm told that we're welcome here as long as we don't speak to anyone.
Okay. Friendly Manitoba is on the license plates. Hopefully we can get it on the air. That's the CBC's Bartley Kivas, now inside at Conservative Party headquarters. By the way, the last time I saw Bartley in person, he was winning Best Local Journalist at the Canadian Screen Awards in Toronto. So he's a guy who knows what he's doing. They should let him talk to some people. Fred, why does this always happen? He's inside. We're covering it. They got a chance to win this. It's a good night for them. They talked to us in Toronto St. Paul's. What the heck, man?
First of all,
Fred, you're responsible.
they're watching CBC. Let's
I know,
be
they
happy
always do.
right there
I know.
out of the gate.
Yeah.
And they let him in. They put a roof over his head. It's nice. He's in there. Look, it's always this is a standard thing we've done for many, many by-elections. I was director of communications for the Conservative Party for a long time.
Feels like an ironic title sometimes.
It feels very, it fees awkward being in this position to defend what I did 10 years ago when it made perfect sense at the time.
Yeah.
Look, it's there's a time in our party's history where media would talk to them, and we would have they would get some perspectives that aren't always great and aren't always want to be heard.
Right.
I remember the 2015 campaign. I can't remember, like, it was in Southwest Ontario. It was an older gentleman who was saying some really nasty things.
A lying piece of, if I remember correctly, rhymes with hit. You know?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's exactly it.
And a bunch of journalists. Yeah.
Things just run smoother when we do it, when we limit like that, so we don't get those type of interactions, and it works well.
Yeah.
Now, generally, I'm sure it would have been fine tonight, but there's always a reason.
Yeah, things just run more smoothly, Greg, when they don't talk to media, when they don't talk to reporters, when they don't participate in candidates' debate. I mean, it's get out the vote, it's voter identification, it's door knocking, it's marketing, it's advertising. It's weird to see Bart. Hang on, he wants to rebuttal before pre-rebuttal. Go ahead.
Pre-rebuttal. I'll just say these are volunteers who are going in there to watch results too, right? They're not politicians. They're not campaign workers in terms of staff. So it is different, and it's a different expectation when you're going into these things to be asked questions. People don't want to be asked sometimes.
No, I get that, and that's fair, but they can always just say, no, it doesn't need to be a blanket ban.
I'm going to say it's weird. It's weird. Look, we did another by-election, and I was talking about some weird things, and then the Democrats were obviously watching that night, and they've stolen my...
They stole your idea, yeah.
But this, again, is where you have professional, even at the local level. It would be so easy to line up some of your better volunteers, local organizers. Maybe you get somebody you want to run provincially, and you tell the reporter, look, we've got some people who are prepared to go on the air tonight, pre-cleared, they're happy to chat. You still can't control the questions, but it's an opportunity. For the life of me, when audiences are shrinking, the fact that the Conservatives ignore so many opportunities, you will not always be leading in the polls. Let me tell you.
Yeah, you've been there.
This moment right now.
Yeah.
So you may need those those media that you're kind of pushing away. You may need them sooner than you think.
Okay, I want to bring in our chief. I'll get the mail right after this one. I'll bring in our chief political correspondent, Rosemary Barton. Rosie, things are tightening up a little bit in Elmwood-Transcona, it seems, as advance polls come in. I mean, we have 66%. We're at the two-third mark. Still, too early to call, and LaSalle-Émard is flopping around. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think there's certainly a trend. The NDP has been leading all night, and that is sort of one of the indicators that we look at as we get to a point where we make a decision. But I think that Conservatives will look at this already, whether they win or lose, and be quite happy to see the improvement in the vote share, which is significant. Because this, as we've been talking about, is an NDP stronghold. So for them to chip away at the support, even to this extent, is certainly good news for them, whether they win or lose in Winnipeg. I think the other riding where things are happening too slowly in Montreal,
yes,
it is fascinating and is exactly what we had been told, that it would be a three-way race, and it certainly is shaping up to be that. Again, the Liberals probably a little happier. It would be better to be in second than third. Of course, they'd still hope to win it, but I think things are tightening up there, and that one is probably going to keep us up for a while, is what I would imagine, given how slow the count is. And we also there as well, they were supposed to count the advance ballots early this evening. In fact, we were told that. So I don't know if that's what we're seeing here, or if we're into the ballots that were cast today.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to make of that, but I think in LaSalle-Émard-Verdun, to quote the great political philosopher Ricky Bobby, if you're not first, you're last for the Liberals. They have to win that seat, or it's a disaster for them. There's no other way to describe it. After losing Toronto St. Paul's, they cannot lose a seat on the island of Montreal. Mel, I just wonder, what's your anxiety level about what we're seeing in Elmwood-Transcona? In that the vote share, it's now 47.8% to 44%, with 68% of the vote in. Right. The trend line we've been showing, it is narrowing as we get deeper into the count, and the Conservatives are moving towards the NDP. What are you hearing? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think my anxiety is always quite high on these nights, particularly.
Life as a New Democrat?
Maybe that too. But particularly tonight, because these were both ridings where the NDP was competitive in. So some excitement there, but also some nervousness. Particularly, I'll repeat what Blake said earlier. I really like Daniel Blakey, so it'd be really great for us to keep that riding after Daniel left, and have an opportunity to get to know Leela as well. I'm going to sound like a broken record New Democrat talking about this not necessarily being an NDP stronghold, and I'm just going to, as maybe more context for that, point to 2010 and 2011 and what happened there. And I think it shows a little bit of how this is, for, outside of when Blakey's run, a little bit tighter, because the socioeconomic of the riding is really orange-blue. And I think in 2010 there was a by-election. The Liberals may have picked it up. And at the time it was, this is the end of the world for the NDP. Jacques Layton should resign. Similar things to maybe some of the themes that we've heard in the last few weeks. And of course, that was a few months away from the biggest showing that the NDP's ever had in a general election in 2011. And even in that orange wave, where we picked up a bunch of seats across the country, the NDP still lost that riding to the Conservatives in Elmwood-Transcona. So I was expecting this race to be tight. I was told that this was going to be tight. Again, the mentality that it was almost like we were the challengers instead of the ones being challenged. But I like the trends. Am I still anxious about it? Totally. I'll probably be anxious until it's called.
Well, but I wonder, Mel, part of the whole tearing up supply and confidence agreement, and I know maybe it's too early to impact this, but it was because the Orange members who were in fights with the blue team were anxious about that orange-blue split, and this is pretty tight. I mean, that is if this is a prelude to what we're going to see whenever this happens. I mean, are you comfortable?
I mean, I'm comfortable that we walked away from the deal. Let's go back to that, though, because the attack used in Elmwood-Transcona was not Jagmeet Singh bad. It was, this is a vote for Justin Trudeau, right? That was the path that it was used. And it's the same kind of language that we're seeing really across the provinces that are orange-blue. We're seeing it used by Premier Moe against Carla Beck in Saskatchewan, where if you vote for the NDP, it's a vote for Justin Trudeau. And they'll talk about Jagmeet, but still the things that they don't like about Jagmeet is his links to Justin Trudeau. So I still think you can recover from that with some distance there, with some good messaging, some talking to voters. I think there's still a path to the election, and that can be worked on. But when you look at it and when you compare, Justin Trudeau and compare Jagmeet Singh, people don't like Justin Trudeau because they don't like Justin Trudeau. Whereas when you look at Jagmeet Singh, they don't like Jagmeet Singh because they don't like Justin Trudeau. So that to me is still something that you can fix. And maybe we're seeing some of that play out in Elmwood-Transcona. I wouldn't be surprised because it is an orange-blue riding, and the supply and confidence agreement was uncomfortable for a lot of New Democrats in those orange-blue provinces like Manitoba, like Saskatchewan, like Alberta, like BC. So even in Ontario, it was uncomfortable for some folks. So we'll see. I do think it's still close, but we'll see with a few more weeks what that feels like.
Okay, I want to give you the latest numbers from LaSalle-Émard-Verdun. Still early. Not early. Still early in the count. Going a little bit slow. 13.4% of the polls are reporting. The Bloc Québécois remains in first place, but by a narrow lead of just 58 votes. The Liberals are there in second place, and the NDP are in third. And just look at that gap. So, it's 58 from first to second. It's not a whole lot more from first to third. Just 1 second, Fred. Showed the vote share. 29.5% for the Bloc Québécois, 28.3% for Laura Palestini of the Liberals, and Craig Sauvé, the other Sauvé, in the top of the ballot at 27.2%. So it is all there. It's like 2.3 percentage points separating first from third. And when you have like 11,129 advanced polls that have to drop into all of that, I don't know what share of these numbers are advanced numbers. We were told they'd be counted early. We don't know if they're being released early or not, but there's still a lot of data to come in LaSalle-Émard-Verdun, and it is super tight. Fred, you want it in?
Well, it's funny looking at this long ballot initiative. They have 91 names on the ballot, and their whole push is for electoral reform.
Yep.
And they're taking away from the fact that this riding, not a single candidate currently, is over 30%. There's a good example of perhaps electoral reform is needed. I'm not saying it is, but it's something that they could be highlighting, and they've kind of ruined it with this silly ballot that they did.
Right. So this, again, to show off the wonderful prop made by the Power and Politics team, is a life-size replica of the ballot that voters and Elections Canada, more importantly at this stage of the night, have to deal with in LaSalle-Émard-Verdun. And look, we showed you the top three numbers. You got 1,400 and change for the Bloc, 1,300 for the Liberals, 1,300 for the NDP, 471 for the Conservatives, 70 Greens, 40 Independent, 17 NA, 15 People's Party, and then it's like 9, 8, 8, 8, 7, 5, 4, 4, 3, 3, 3. It's 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. And then you got a bunch with 0, right? Like a massive amount of people with absolutely no vote. Well, they may, who knows if they even live in the riding? Who knows if they're just like a paper candidate, all this sort of thing, They may not even be able to vote for themselves, but this is how much is changing. Let's go back to LaSalle and look at that. The other Sauvé is back on top. So I don't know if he's consolidated all of the independent votes, but Craig Sauvé has moved back in the first place. We have 30 polls of 187 reporting, so that's 16% of the total numbers. 1,681. He's got a majority of just 20 over the other Sauvé on the ballot. Louis-Philippe Sauvé of the Bloc Québécois, who has 1,661 at 28.8% of the vote. Laura Palestini back at third. This is like lottery balls ping-ponging around, as they pull out the numbers. It is 2.5% from first to third.
Well, it was when, the previous results, it was a difference of 100 votes between Le Bloc and the NDP, and now it looks like it's about 100 and some votes between the NDP and the Liberals. So it's like the first place and third place, it's like a 100-vote difference that keeps flipping between the three of them, which is
I'm trying to do math. 1681 minus 1538 is basically 143, I would say, separating first from third in LaSalle-Émard-Verdun. I'm having flashbacks to Toronto St. Paul's, Greg. I don't know, I think we're going to be able to stay on until we get an Elmwood-Transcona. I don't know if we're going to be on to get a LaSalle-Émard-Verdun.
Got cots in the back.
From a keep the faith perspective, I will say that the polls in LaSalle are slowly ticking, not at the same rate as Elmwood, but certainly much faster thus far than St. Paul's. You see a poll. In Elmwood, we were saying you could refresh and you could see 5 or 6 polls being added in that count. This time, it takes a little while, and then another poll is added. Again, 11,000 people voted in the advanced, and I'd really like to figure out how Elections Canada can start on those in an earlier fashion when they have this many people on the ballot.
Yeah, it's my heart goes out. I always say when we look at what is happening in U.S. elections, with the challenges, with the gerrymandering of the ridings, with the inability to vote for some people, and the constant challenges of disenfranchise and reduce the number of voting spaces, I always say we take Elections Canada for granted in this country because we redraw the maps. We're going to have a redrawn map next time. Nobody thinks it's a giant scandal or corruption or attempt to disenfranchise. It's done in an orderly, nonpartisan way. For the most part, votings and elections in this country, you know, it's important to have trust in civic institutions at a time when it's fraying all across Western democracies. They do a pretty good job. It goes pretty well, you know, like, you know, occasionally you get some recounts and things change, but, you know, it's all, you know, it's rare and it's explainable when it happens. And they've got to deal with that. They have the massive ballot, Fred, that they've got to deal with. While we sit here and tread water on this live stream that thousands of people are watching at home. What do you make of LaSalle-Émard-Verdun as things just bounce around?
Well, it's just a three-way race, as everyone predicted. I don't know what is actually a win for the Liberals anymore, though, here. Even winning the seat. Yeah. Obviously, a win is a win, and they'll be happy, and they'll claim a great victory. But even that it's competitive. This is one of the safest Liberal seats in the country, and they are losing to 2 other parties right now. So I think, again, it's going to be hard for Liberals to spin this in any way. The Bloc, I think obviously they should be happy where they are. The NDP at the same time, though, I feel after everything that's happened the last few weeks, need to win these 2 seats. They need to show that they're competitive and that, you know, that they got something out of the deal and then got something out of breaking up the deal. And we'll see how this plays out tonight, though.
But, like, look, I know a narrow win, Greg, in LaSalle-Émard-Verdun, you know, still raises a lot of doubts and questions. But at a certain point, the Liberals need the political equivalent of emergency room medicine, right? They have to just stop the bleeding, stabilize the patients, and go from there. So a win, would it do that, or a really narrow win, or does it need to be convincing to calm everybody down?
I'm going to look at this through the point of view of a sitting MP. If you're watching this and you're going to reoffer, that's, I think, going to be crucial. Wednesday morning will be caucus day in Ottawa. Wednesday would be very key around that. Incumbency is always your best bet, or is one of the best bets in terms of re-election. It doesn't always work, but you know, name familiarity, you know, unknown. I mean, this is why I think the NDP keep talking about it being a Blakey riding because you know, of the name recognition. I do have a little bit of an update on the polls from LaSalle. I'm told by somebody who was on the ground that the part of the riding that is LaSalle, where the Liberal candidate represents municipally, have not reported in yet. And
so that's significant.
Yeah, and the people that I've talked to on the ground who were there were also in St. Paul's, and they said at least where they were in LaSalle, there was a much different feeling on the ground than St. Paul's.
So walk me through that, though. Different how?
Better.
Better. Well, I mean,
positive. I mean, this is the thing that I think we talked about the night of St. Paul's, and I had checked in with some reporters. I believe it was discussed about how reporters were having trouble in their street interviews, the streeters, that getting somebody on that was going to say that they were voting Liberal. That was pretty tough. That's a pretty big sign. When I'm told in the area that the Liberal candidate represents municipally, much more positive.
Okay. We're going to get some more numbers from LaSalle-Émard-Verdun and see if that improves the mood of Greg and the other Liberals. Maybe not, maybe so. Craig Sauvé is still in first place with a 47-vote lead over Louis-Philippe Sauvé of the Bloc Québécois. But look at that. It's 47 votes between first and second, and 55 votes between first and third. So that one's going to go late, folks. That is going to be another well into the maybe close to dawn before we get an answer to that. Who knows? Maybe Alison Northcott has more numbers. I don't know. But she's with a Bloc candidate at the Bloc event in LaSalle-Émard-Verdun, and she joins us now. So Alison, take us away. What's the latest from Bloc headquarters?
Yeah, again, people just watching these results, waiting for new numbers to come in. When there were moments that Louis-Philippe Sauvé was ahead, there was a tremendous amount of excitement, people singing Notre Pays, very excited to I'm here with Simon Bérubé. He's a candidate for Bloc Québec City area for the next federal election. So far of the results, it looks like a three-way race. What does that tell you are thinking in this riding?
Well, we knew it would be tough. It's a riding we haven't won. We have in a while, so we knew it would be tight, but we're still. We did groundwork that was tremendous. A tremendous race, a tremendous campaign. He went non-stop, so we're quite proud of him, and I think...
Tell me about what you were hearing from voters in the riding when you went door to door.
I like the fact that the Bloc Québécois doesn't do any compromise on the environment, on identity. They don't have to compromise about anything of topics, and that's what they appreciate the more, I think.
Simon Bérubé, he's a candidate for the Bloc Québécois, and we're here at the Bloc Québécois headquarters for awaiting further results and keeping a close eye.
Okay, Alison, thank you so much. That's the CBC's Alison Northcott. And folks, we're having signal issues in a lot of these locations. I think the sleeper issue of these by-elections is broadband and cell access in Winnipeg and in Montreal for some reasons. But, you know, we're slow to get numbers, and it's tough to hold a DeGiro signal, DeGiro being the piece of equipment that we use to broadcast using cell service and Wi-Fi. Not going so great for us. Okay, that is LaSalle-Émard-Verdun. Where the numbers are coming in, well, we got just under 20% of the vote right now, 37 of 187 polls reporting. And as we showed you the last time we had the numbers up, it's like it was 55 votes between first and third. This sort of, Fred, I don't know if I've ever really seen a riding that's a three-way like this, you know, recently. Like typically you have, you know, areas where they're broadly competitive, but it tends to get down to a binary kind of near the end, you know, red, blue, blue, you know, blue, red, whatever. This is, Quebec being the most volatile political climate in the country, that probably makes sense.
Right. It's particularly unique in a by-election as well. Usually the third place party gets squeezed even more because there's the two choices you have. In a general, they're a bit more common. Not this close, though. Again, 2004, I think, when Brad Trost was first elected, former Conservative MP, he was elected under 30% of the vote.
Right.
There was an independent that ran against him, and the NDP and the Liberals in that riding, so it was a four-way split. But it is highly, highly unusual to have this type of a split with, again, no candidate over 30% of the polls.
Okay, we've got some newish numbers, we're going to call them, from LaSalle-Émard-Verdun, where you can see that trend of everything being super close continuing. Craig Sauvé in first place with a 56-vote lead over Louis-Philippe Sauvé of the Bloc Québécois. But you're looking at 104 votes separating first from third, right? So when you look at that and you look at as a not just raw numbers, but as a percentage of the total vote, because that's the number you're seeing ticking around on the bottom there of the screen. For the two seats, it's 28.6% for the NDP, 27.8% for the Bloc Québécois, and 27.1% for the NDP. So no one's even at 30%. I mean, it's one of the criticisms of the first past the post system, which is one of the issues we're having in Montreal with the comically long ballot, is a protest of the current electoral system that we have. There's no runoffs, there's no 50% plus one, it's whoever has the most. I mean, we could have a member of parliament elected out of LaSalle-Émard-Verdun with less than 30% of the vote, Mel. That would be I don't know if I've ever seen that before, but that would be quite the thing. If this sort of the trend line of it staying tight and narrow and ping-ponging back and forth, that's very well where we could end up.
Yeah, totally. And to your point, the point of a lot of these candidates is to protest exactly this. But yeah, I don't know. I find it super fascinating. It makes our elections a little bit more interesting, and maybe it'll convince more folks to participate in our elections when they know it's that close.
More folks are participating?
More? No. For people to show up and vote, right? One of the things that we hear often is folks, they like voting for a winner, and when they think their vote doesn't matter, they don't necessarily show up. When you've got elections like that, your vote literally matters, right? So, yeah, it's maybe makes for a long night tonight, but hopefully folks see this and it shows them in a really real way why they need to show up and vote for who they want to win.
But, Greg, you can see the effect it's having on the actual counting and the delivery of the results, right? LaSalle-Émard-Verdun, I'm not going to give you the candidates' numbers, but 40 of 187 polls have reported. That's just 21.4%. In Elmwood-Transcona, 142 of 191 polls have reported. That's 74.3%. We're not in a position to make a projection. The CBC decision desk on any of these, certainly not LaSalle-Émard-Verdun. You might want to come back on Friday to get those. But it is at least moving towards a conclusion in Elmwood-Transcona of some sort. The NDP have kind of led from the start of the count. They still have a lead now. They're about 4.5 percentage points ahead of the Conservatives right now. Your thoughts on where we are?
One of the things I'm watching is it's really tough to do polling in ridings, so you're going to have a high percentage of error. The one that I believe is Main Street did one in July and one in September. And basically, between July and September, according to this poll, the Liberal and the Bloc flip numbers, 29% for the Liberals in July, 29.6% for the Bloc in early September, and the Liberals fell in that poll to 24%, the NDP at 23%. So according to that prediction, the Bloc would win this by 5 points, and the Liberals and the NDP would be neck and neck. So I'm kind of, again, I think the percentage of error was 4.7, and I'm not a pollster.
Look at this.
I think it's above 3 is where you're supposed to kind of start to question. I could be wrong on that. So that's what I'm kind of watching right now. Is this, are we going to see the Bloc pull ahead and then the Liberals and the NDP nipping at each other's heels?
Okay, I'm seeing Craig Sauvé walk into the NDP headquarters. We're going to watch that and see what happens. As I say that, I see the picture freeze, so we'll see. Bring in Rosemary Barton. We know we got a clean signal because she's in the building. Rosie, we're watching LaSalle-Émard-Verdun, and it is flopping back and forth. We're waiting to hear from Craig Sauvé. What are your thoughts on where these two races are going?
Yeah, the Montreal one, I mean, it's pretty wild, right? You guys were talking about how close it is and how much it's flipping and flopping around. The Liberals have to take a message from that, regardless of what the outcome is. That a place that, I recognize it's not Paul Martin's old riding, but part of it is, and in a place that Liberals need to hold on to if they actually want to form government again. It shouldn't be like this. Like, it should not be this tight. And obviously, with all the caveats that by-elections are different, there are often protest votes. There's not the risk of losing government. It doesn't matter that much because it still signals something to the government that something is not getting through to Canadians about what they're doing and what they're saying, or they're not doing and saying the right things at all. And I'm not sure. I'm not sure that Liberals will take that message, regardless of what the final outcome is tonight. We talked about what happened after the Toronto-St. Paul by-election. There was a dust-up for a couple of weeks, and then everything sort of calmed down. Now, we know that at caucus, things were said and presented and told to MPs, and caucus went away feeling a little bit better about things. The results in that Montreal by-election may shatter the goodwill that the Prime Minister's office managed to build back inside caucus last week. And so I think that should be a concern. But it is remarkable that it is this close for the three of them. And in Winnipeg, we'll see. The reason we're not making a call again is because of those advanced polls, as you said, that might favor the Conservatives, so it might end up being tighter than it should. I think there, again, even if the NDP pull it off, there's a message there that the Conservatives are coming for you, and that they have a convincing message to a lot of the same voters that the NDP are going after.
Right.
So there's going to be a lot of sort of post-mortem conversations that have to happen, even if we end up with status quo, or we end up with upturns. I think that they're going to have some real conversations in the days ahead about what this means. If the NDP, were to pull out both wins, then I think we're getting into some pretty hairy territory for an election that's sooner rather than later. That might embolden them to do something. Who knows? But again, we're not there yet.
Yeah, if they win both of these seats, I'm going to go home, do laundry, and pack. Okay, Rosie, thanks. Always appreciate it. We're going to go to Montreal now, where Craig Sauvé, the NDP candidate who is leading right now in LaSalle-Émard-Verdun, is speaking to supporters at his headquarters. Let's listen in.
And we have to stand up for human rights, as we did for the people of Palestine.
Okay, well, if you stay, just let me know, because I'll be.
We have to put an end to this disastrous war. Results are coming in slowly. It's a very tight race. But again, I have to extend my thanks to all the voters for getting out to vote today. Thank you very much. Thank you all very much. And we have a firebrand team behind us. John, Mathieu, Julien, Mimi. We had a team that worked so hard. Felix, we were absolutely incredible as a team. And fantastic volunteers as well, real warriors who are out there day after day, knocking on doors. And I want to raise a glass to all of them. So really, the message I'm hearing today is that the NDP will be competitive in every single riding of Montreal. This is the biggest NDP campaign that the people of this riding have ever seen. And I can tell you that in the next election, we're going to win a lot of new seats. Poilievre isn't here, the NDP is here.
We fought one heck of a campaign. I am super pleased. It was like a dream campaign, and we talked about the real issues that face people. We're talking about housing, creating off-market housing, truly affordable housing. We're talking about investing more in our health system, creating more services for people. And of course, the environment remains a priority for the NDP, as it always has. The first party to bring up climate change in Parliament was the NDP, and we're still fighting hard to reverse climate change. It's an important file. And yes, absolutely, we stand up for human rights. Yes, absolutely, we stand up for an end to the terrible war in Gaza. We want that killing to stop immediately. And Canada should be using its force. Canada should be using its power to do everything it can to end this terrible war. And we're not afraid to say it. And Justin Trudeau's got to stop with the inaction. He's got to get going on this file, and we're going to be on its tail with it. Again, though, results are still coming in. We're waiting for more. But we had such a good team working on it this campaign, day in, day out. We were here till, we started in March, actually. We had people working in March, preparing this thing, doing door-to-door. I had to wear like winter coats when I started doing door-to-door because it was so cold. And it's shown, it's paid off. We're plus at least 10 in the course so far. Things are looking really good. As the results come in, we're hopeful to get the victory here. But if not, one thing is for sure. The NDP is competitive in Montreal. We're going to win seats in Montreal. We're going to have great candidates in Montreal, and Montrealers are going to see more NDP MPs after the next election. And then you know what? We're going for government too. Yeah. We're going to have Prime Minister Singh. Absolutely. Absolutely. Donc, je suis tellement fier du travail que notre parti a fait dans cette partielle-là. On avait l'appui
I'm so proud of the work that was done during this campaign.
Les gens l'adorent ici dans le comté. À chaque fois que je sortais avec lui, c'était plus de votes. Les gens répondent à ses messages.
People love him in this riding, and every time I went out with him, people were really happy to see him. And it's looking good for the next election in Montreal. Thank you to everyone who was there. Thank you to the NDP. Thank you to the volunteers and the voters.
You all made a difference, and it's an important piece of democracy. Hopefully we'll wake up tomorrow with a new NDP MP, and we can get to work for real needs and real issues, and it's been a long time you haven't been served by an NDP MP that can do that kind of issues for you. So thank you so much, everybody. On attend les résultats. Je vais être ici avec vous. Merci beaucoup.
That is the NDP candidate for LaSalle-Émard-Verdun, Craig Sauvé, speaking to his supporters. A very optimistic and energetic speech, touching on the issues of the war in Gaza and his support for the Palestinian people, and promising to be on Justin Trudeau's tail, should he get elected, to get the Canadian government to do everything it can to stop the conflict there. An optimistic speech about the NDP's chances, during which he lost first place and the Bloc Québécois moved into first place. That is just the nature of the race in LaSalle-Émard-Verdun right now, where the gap from first to third, you see there on the bottom of the screen, is just 1.6 percentage points of the vote that has been cast. Nobody over 28% right now in what is a very tight three-way race between the Bloc Québécois, the New Democratic Party, and of course the incumbent Liberals, who right now are in third place. The pace of that vote, the count of that vote, being derailed, quite frankly, which was the intention of this, by the maneuver by the longest ballot committee to put as many names as they could on that. They got 91 candidates running in that by-election, 4 or 5 of them from the traditional parties, everyone else sort of as part of a protest vote or from a fringe party trying to express their discontent with the electoral systems that exist in Canada, the first-past-the-post system, wanting some sort of electoral form. It may vary depending on who you talk to. The other race we are watching is Elmwood-Transcona, where the numbers are coming in at a much brisker pace, but where we are still not ready to project a winner. The NDP have been in first place all night. They have 48.2% of the vote compared to just under 44% for the Conservatives, but there is a significant number of advanced votes cast. This is the situation right now in Elmwood-Transcona. Leela Dance has a lead of 662 votes right now over Colin Reynolds of the Conservative Party of Canada. Fred, I gotta say, they're doing pretty good, the Conservatives, for a party that told me they had zero chance of winning this. I just want to point that out. Second by-election in a row. And just to give you an idea of what's going to be happening here, this is a by-election special. The last time we did this was Toronto-St. Paul's. We went off the air before a result. We are hopeful to get a result in Elmwood-Transcona in the next little while. Our intention right now is to stay on the air till about 12:30 Eastern to see if we can get that. The way things are looking right now in LaSalle-Émard-Verdun, listen to CBC Radio in the morning, I think, is where we're probably going to be going with that one, because 4:30 a.m. was when we got the Toronto-St. Paul's, and we're looking at a similar situation right now. But let's just talk about what we just heard. Fred, bring you in first. I know the Conservatives are, they're at 11.3%, by the way, in LaSalle-Émard-Verdun, which is up 4 percentage points.
Again, with the 3 other choices, strong choices, that's a very good number.
What did you make of how prominently the issue of the Israel-Hamas war, that conflict that has been tearing apart that region and also tearing apart Canadian politics for almost a year now, played in Craig Sauvé's speech there. And what impact do you think that issue could have in not, I mean, we have these by-elections, we're going to have some more maybe, just in the runway we have left until a federal election?
Right. Well, look, it's going to play in different areas depending on the population of those areas and the demographics. The NDP have that position that I don't agree with and that a lot of Conservatives don't. Conservatives have a very clear position itself on the other side of the argument, where the Liberals really have just all basically have, it feels like, have upset both sides on the whole conflict. And it's a heck of a situation to be in when you're in government. It's true you've got to make decisions and you're in a different situation. But when you're not clear on an issue and you're trying to befriend both sides or trying to communicate on both sides of your mouth, you get into trouble, and that's where they are right now. Where St. Paul's was the opposite issue that they had. So it's lose-lose for the Liberals on these issues.
I just got a sarcastic text from a Liberal, Greg, saying, is Craig Sauvé now conceding? Because the way we talked about Lower Palestine earlier, so fair play.
I think the tone was a little bit different between the two.
But just, I just wanted to put that out there because I thought it was funny and fair dig from the Liberal on my phone there. The Palestine issue, right? He put the Palestinian flag on his campaign literature, which is a rare thing to see, a foreign flag flying on the literature for domestic by-election campaign, in particular general election especially. The NDP have very clearly, embraced the Palestinian cause. I mean, how do you think that affects this race and future races?
Right. Well, I think we're going to see. I don't think that this is unique to, Canada. I think the United States and that presidential race right now are seeing that issue play out particularly with Kamala Harris.
Michigan in particular is a challenge for them, right? Big Muslim population.
Yeah, and in Montreal there is a big Muslim population. There's particularly with folks with Palestinian descent who have felt like the folks that they sent to Ottawa, the majority Liberal MPs, aren't listening to the concerns and aren't taking, this seriously. So I'm assuming that's something that Craig Sauvé has heard very directly from voters and something that people are really passionate and care about. So that's why we've seen it in his speech tonight. And I do think that this is something that we're going to continue to talk about in the lead up to our next election, because it's an issue that's ongoing. The war is ongoing, so that's not going away, and until it does, or until it's resolved, I think we're going to see it play out here, and folks are very passionate about this issue. They care a lot, and it's because people are dying, so that's why people...
We worked very, very hard.
Okay, I sorry to interrupt, but Craig Sauvé is speaking to reporters. We're just going to dip back into that at his headquarters in Montreal to hear what he has to say.
We had an incredible team that worked very, very hard. And really satisfied. We are in the opposition now, but we're here to win. At the doors, people wanted to talk about housing, healthcare, and environmental issues. Those are the things that people are interested and concerned with. This would be the biggest gain that any party has made in a riding like this. We have a chance to win, but the point is that we really ran a very good campaign.
Oh, I mean, it's a lot tighter. It's a three-way race. The first time I won was with 29% when I won as a city councillor. 29, 26, 23, 19. And so this time, it feels like that one, where I went up and down and I knew the next morning for sure that I had won. And it's okay, so I've been there before, and right here, we have enthusiasm in the crowd because we're really happy about our campaign. I think leaving it at the core issues was what important, you know? People really talk about their insecurity with housing right now. They're extremely worried. They're worried for themselves and for people in their neighborhood. They want to remain a mixed neighborhood where everybody's welcome. That's what you feel in Verdun, Byelection, Côte-Saint-Paul, and LaSalle. They're worried about the health system. They're encouraged by the programs that we fought for, like dental care, like pharmacare. They want to see more of that, especially as the cost of everything's rising. So I think people are more focused on what they're affecting their daily lives more than anything else. We campaign on those issues straight and up front. We put posters that were issue-based, and I think that people responded well to that.
Can you expand on why you thought it was, why you wanted to bring up the issue of Israel-Palestine tonight at this party, and that issue that you expanded on in your campaign?
It's one of the things that people are talking about. People are extremely worried. We have a path to peace, and that we believe that if Canada follows this, we can get better results. We need Canada to be a leader in this, and the NDP's been clear, and I'm very pleased. Back in our history as Canadians, we've sent people to Bosnia and Herzegovina, Croatia, to Lebanon, to Cyprus to defend, peace, and we want to be peace builders here. And we have our propositions that are really clear, and people asked about it all the time on door to door. So I'm absolutely going to bring it up because it's really important, and we want to find solutions. We want Canada finally to act on this file and to be a leader like we used to be back in the day.
Last question.
Us, we don't talk about the other guys. We talk about the core issues that we are bringing up in Parliament. Like I mentioned, off-market housing, truly affordable housing, bringing down the cost of groceries, expanding the healthcare program, and the climate crisis. And of course, we talked about foreign issues as well that are really important to people in these neighborhoods. So when I do the door, I don't even mention the other parties. I mention the issues, and I try to interact with people based on that. And they responded well, clearly.
Les libéraux ont beaucoup attaqué l'NPD dans les derniers jours. Là,
Il y avait peur de nous, c'est ça, parce que nous sommes clairement le parti qui peut les remplacer au Parlement, ici au Québec, ici à Montréal. Donc ils ont peur de nous, c'est pour ça qu'ils nous attaquent.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup. Merci, guys.
Okay, that was Craig Sauvé, the NDP candidate in LaSalle-Émard-Verdun. Clearly needs to refresh his feed of this live stream in the background because he's way behind right now because that was live and they are a good 20 minutes at least behind in the stream of this. But look, they know the results. Probably maybe better than we do. I don't know, but a very positive, Mel, I interrupted you to go to Craig Sauvé. Very positive energy, positive message, positive tone, demeanor, saying, he said, we don't talk about the other guys, and we all like perked up. It's like, oh no, I see Jagmeet Singh do that all the time, but he's talking about his campaign on the doors. He goes, our issues, positive message. Right. What do you make of what you heard from Craig Sauvé? He's in second right now, I think.
Yeah, excited, positive, a lot more rah-rah, thank you so much before going to bed. He's still in the room, and from what I hear, he's staying in the room until they have a better idea of what the results look like. So a little bit different than the Liberal candidate. And I think like he made it clear. I think the sentiment that folks in the NDP headquarters were saying to me beforehand was the feeling in Montreal was a good feeling. People were feeling good. They were coming up to Jagmeet and to Craig when they were out in the neighborhood saying good things about the things that they're talking about in Ottawa. So hopefully we see Craig Sauvé. Did it just flip? No, it's the Winnipeg. I thought Craig Sauvé was back in the league. Hopefully we see Craig Sauvé in Ottawa, but his message, I think, was very clear that if we don't, this city, Montreal, is going to be interesting for the NDP heading into the next election.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. And Greg, I know, in talking to people about this race, and this is not a discredit to the Orange team in any way, Mel, but it was Craig Sauvé that people pointed to, well-known, well-connected, on the ground, municipal candidate, the sort of perfect by-election candidate because he brings name recognition, a ready-made base of local workers, right? And that lifts any party brand when you get a candidate like that to run for them. So it's a credit to him. I'm not disparaging the NDP thing, but he has run a good campaign by all accounts and elevated fortunes there for the NDP where they're in it.
And I believe he's worked on other campaigns.
But isn't Palestini also a councillor?
Totally, but it's a Liberal seat, is my point, and they're in third, and the NDP are third. This is all a credit to him, right?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, Greg, I got to interrupt you because Layla Dance, the NDP candidate in Elmwood-Transcona, is speaking at her headquarters. So we're going to go take that in. If the feed holds, here's hoping.
Wow, thank you so much. I don't even know where to begin here. I'm just gonna, first I'm gonna thank the voters of Elmwood-Transcona. Okay. You've all been waiting for me all night, so let's do this, okay? I want to thank all the volunteers. I couldn't have done this without you. You guys are so amazing. You've been here from the very beginning, helping me. It's 15 months. My campaign team, I don't know what I would have done without you. Each one of you, I've had a special place in my heart moving forward. Like, thank you so much. And I know I was not going to mention anybody's name, but Riley, Shannon, wherever you are. The federal NDP, you guys coming together for me, coming from all across the country to support me, the text messages and everything today, the phone calls, like, I love you guys. Thank you so much. I'm already part of the family, so that's amazing. The provincial NDP, Bob Canoe, and the team here, oh my God, I love you guys. Thank you so much. So surreal. To my family and friends who I've literally avoided for the last 14 weeks. My son who hasn't had a home-cooked meal in forever. Maybe tomorrow. We'll see. My dad, who isn't here with us today, but I felt like he's been with me the whole time. His hand on my shoulder, just thanks, Dad. I love you. To everyone who supported me, who held my hand, who patted my back, who held me up. Again, I couldn't have done this without you. It's been amazing. I feel like I have a whole new a whole new extended family. Those people who didn't even know me, who came out, those who knew me and still came out, like, I appreciate it so much. I can't begin to express it. I know that there's probably people I'm forgetting here, and it's just been such a real situation. I don't even know how to describe it, and unless you've done it, you'll never understand it, and I don't even think I'll ever understand it. I know we don't know the final result here today, but I'm confident. I will fight for Elmwood-Transcona. I will for Canadians. I will. I promise to make you all so proud of me, and I will see you in Ottawa. Thanks.
Okay, that was Leela Dance, the NDP candidate in Elmwood-Transcona, saying she'll see us in Ottawa, giving a speech that had all of the tone and all of the energy and all of the positivity of a victory speech, but not so fast. We're not there yet. We have right now, this is the situation we have right now. She has a 921 vote lead. There are 7,500 votes left to count, is what we're told. There were more than 10,000 votes, 7,500 of the advance votes left to count. There were 10,032 advance votes cast in Elmwood-Transcona. Only about 2,500 of them are reflected in those numbers. So here we are with 170 polls of 191 reporting, and that is 89% of the polls have been counted, and that is still too close to call. Okay, we're going to look at the numbers in LaSalle-Émard-Verdun right now. Craig Sauvé is running away with it. He has a 3-vote lead. It's 6 votes from first to third. This has changed about 3 times while I have been talking about Elmwood-Transcona. 3 votes, I mean...
David, I missed my moment there.
What can you say?
The Liberals were in the lead for...
Yeah, I know, Greg. I'm sorry to deprive you of your moment of glory. But look at the vote, this vote share graphic. Look at this. It's a bowl of spaghetti, right? It's all just tangled together, right?
27.2, that's wild.
Yeah, like they're tied, right, at 27.2 in the numbers. 48.4 to 43.7 in Elmwood-Transcona is a landslide in comparison to what we're seeing in LaSalle-Émard-Verdun. I mean, you're running away with it out there, Mel.
Is that the headline tomorrow?
Yeah,
Landslide?
well, we'll see. Anything can happen in a by-election. But LaSalle-Émard-Verdun, I've never seen anything like this one. This is... Yeah, it is a 27.2 3-way tie when it comes to vote share, and a 6-vote gap separating first from third in that particular race. So look, that one, probably going to have a recount there. I think it's almost certain we're going to, there will be lawyers in something like that. But let's see if we can get any clarity from Sarah Levitt, who is our CBC reporter who is in Montreal. And Sarah Levitt has been hanging out all night at Laura Palestini's headquarters in Montreal. She's there at the Liberal HQ. Sarah, I don't know, it doesn't look like there's a big crowd there. I see a lot of Laura Palestini, but I don't see Laura Palestini. What's happening where you are right now?
Well, David, you saw there was this moment from probably about as soon as closed at 9:30 for about an hour. There were quite, and then of course we heard from Laura Palestini, and she came. Everybody had a lot of energy in that speech, and then soon after she left, this place went pretty quiet. But there are still some people. Let me just tell you that all of them are on their phones, refreshing the Canada page, maybe looking at CBC, seeing the results, as flip between the 3 candidates. Laura Palestini saying here that she was running for the Liberals to bring continuity, that she felt that it was the best party of this riding. She is a long-time municipal councillor here, particularly in LaSalle. You heard from her too in English, French, and Italian. That's because this area has been a place where lots of Italians have lived. It's just a waiting game. Everybody here kind of seeing at one point a few votes.
Right.
There was some excitement. It goes back and forth.
Okay, Sarah, I think it's going to be a late night for the counters at Elections Canada in Montreal. LaSalle-Émard-Verdun, numbers are coming in a little bit faster. We're not going to get a result before we have to say goodnight because Fred and Greg and Mel have day jobs, and I have so do I. I have a show I got to do tomorrow. We got to come in. There's going to be question period talking about all of this to give us a sense of what's going on. Elmwood-Transcona is racing closer, but it's not there yet. It is now 15 minutes past midnight here in Ottawa. It would be about, 11:15 in Winnipeg in Elmwood-Transcona. So polls have been closed now, 9:30 they close, so 2 hours and 45 minutes. The counting has been happened, but we still have a ton let's put it that way, of advance votes that still need to be counted in Elmwood-Transcona. The NDP have led there all night. Their candidate that we just heard from, as she was speaking there, oh my God, I'm blanking, Leela Dance, excuse me. So I don't know, can we just show the numbers of the races to get a sense of where we are right now? Like if we can take a look at Elmwood-Transcona or LaSalle-Émard, because I see that new numbers are coming in here on my laptop as we get a sense of things. So look at this. So Leela Dance has broken the 10,000 vote mark, which is not a lot necessarily in a general election, but that is substantial in a by-election. What is more substantial at this point, with more than 90% of the votes being counted, is that she has a vote, 90% of the polls reporting, is that she has a lead of over 1,000 votes right now, just shy of 1,200. 9,300 there for Colin Reynolds, the NDP well back at... Okay, we're going to go to the Conservative headquarters in Elmwood-Transcona. There we go.
While this certainly was not the result we were hoping for, I'm proud of the work we did here. We were the underdog in this, and we made it a tight race, something I know we can all be proud of. This has been quite a journey, and I owe many people thanks. To the voters of Elmwood-Transcona who over the past few months have opened their doors and shared their stories with me, thank you. It has been a privilege to get to meet so many of you. To the volunteers who joined the Common Sense team here in Elmwood-Transcona, thank you for your hard work. Over the last few months. This campaign would not have been possible without your hard work and dedication. To the tradesmen, tradeswomen, proud union workers from across the riding and the country who reached out to offer words of support, thank you. And last but not least, thank you to my family who have been a constant support, and a special thank you to my wife Sandra, who joined me on this journey, shared birthdays and our 29th anniversary with the campaign. Thank you for your support, not only for the last few months, but the last 32 years. I entered this election the same way I will leave it, a construction electrician, a proud member of IBW 2085, and a proud Conservative. Thank you all for your support throughout the campaign. We fought hard and should all be proud of what the Conservative team accomplished here. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Okay, that is Colin Reynolds, who is the Conservative candidate in Elmwood-Transcona, breaking his own news of what he says is his defeat in that by-election race. The CBC decision desk is still not prepared to make a projection on this because of the outstanding vote share, but the Colin Reynolds decision desk has declared the seat for Leela Dance of the New Democrats. She had said earlier in a very positive and upbeat speech, because the campaigns know what their share is of some of the votes that we don't have yet, and she said, "We'll see you in Ottawa." Turns out she was correct. The candidates in that riding now telling us that the NDP will hold Elmwood-Transcona. Colin Reynolds for the Conservatives announcing and conceding, having run a good campaign, increasing the Conservative vote share there from 28% to more than 43%. But Mel, bottom line is right now, from the Conservative Party of Canada, we are told, the New Democratic Party of Canada have held Elmwood-Transcona, 48.9% of the vote at this point for Leela Dance. What are your thoughts?
Well, I do remember Jenny Bird going on TV the last time around and deking us out and then going to bed and then waking up and being totally different. So yeah. I won't celebrate until it's called for sure. But I do think that's good. It's still trending in the right direction. The gap is growing. I was told that the NDP was happy or okay with their advance vote, so maybe it continues to trend in this direction as we see those votes coming in as well. But yeah, if the NDP is able to hold this and things continue to track the way that they are tracking in Montreal, are there conversations about how the NDP is going to confront Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative and the surge in places like Winnipeg afterwards? Totally. But I think the NDP will be pretty pleased with the results tonight.
Well, the key thing for the NDP here, Mel, is that we don't have the final numbers, but look, they got 49.7% when Daniel Blakey was the candidate.
Totally.
Right now, they're at 48.9% with 9% of the vote left to come. Their vote held, which is not what we saw with the Liberals in Toronto St. Paul's. It did hold for the NDP in Elmwood-Transcona. It was a Conservative surge that made it competitive, right? So, Fred, there's kind of positives here for the blue team and the orange team. They hold the seat, but gains, progress, and showing living up to the national polls, right?
Right, for sure. For one, it looks like it's not actually a Blakey seat, but an NDP seat.
Yes, no more Daniel Blakey is the only reason we won messaging.
Again, poor David Alloway. No, look, going up 15% is something to be very proud of for the Conservatives. They've obviously worked very hard on their messages resonating. And where did they get those votes from if the NDP were holding? It means Liberals...
they're down 10 percentage points, and the People's
Greens,
Party's
the
down
People's
4.5.
Party, that's the other one. So they, if they're going and growing from those other parties, then that's a good sign. And going into the next general, they're well positioned.
Now, look, again, the CBC decision desk has not made a projection. There are still thousands of votes outstanding. And I know, Mel, we did have Jenny Byrne come on in Toronto St. Paul's and say, we have no chance of winning, which surprised Don Stewart, who is their candidate, who took a seat in the House of Commons today after winning. But that was a concession speech. It was heartfelt from Colin Reynolds. So I doubt this is a switcheroo. Greg, look, the NDP vote, the Liberal vote is down there, but it's a little bit like the NDP in Toronto St. Paul, that it became a binary race and they got squeezed. In the time we've got left, because it looks like we are probably going to tap out of this at around 12:30 Eastern time, LaSalle-Émard-Verdun, where, man, this is tight, right? So we're going to go to bed like we did with Toronto St. Paul's. I'm assuming everybody went to bed. I did. And we don't know. And we're going to wake up and go, oh my God, that happened. And right now, it's any number of options that could happen because it's like 27.7% for the Bloc in first and 26.8% for the Liberals in third. I mean, what do you expect to hear when you get up?
First, congratulations. I think you guys would be very happy with the result. I know you want it to be official. In terms of LaSalle-Émard, what Liberals are watching right now, I've heard from other people that the LaSalle section of the riding is what they're really counting on because that's what the municipal area of the candidate. The other thing is I'm hearing that they feel that their advance game was very strong.
Right.
And we still, last time I checked, they hadn't hit quite the 50% of polls being counted.
Well, I just want to stop you there because the numbers they're flooding in all of a sudden in LaSalle-Émard-Verdun. They're at 51%. We just have them up on the screen. Jerry, can we get those back up? Is that possible? Just to show this is what we call the hero board, folks. It shows the people who are running in the election. The Bloc is still in first place. Okay, there's Elmwood-Transcona. We'll just recap this. This is fine. This looks like it is going to be an NDP hold. That is not me saying that. That is not the CBC decision desk saying that. That is Colin Reynolds, the Conservative candidate you see there in second place, saying that. We just carried some of his concession speech there. So that is not official and final, but the anticipation desk thinks that's going to be an NDP hold in Elmwood-Transcona. Here's the seat we're watching now most closely, and this is LaSalle-Émard-Verdun. And you can see just the situation there. I mean, Louis-Philippe Sauvé, the top three candidates have all been in first place. He's got a 13-vote lead there with Craig Sauvé of the NDP in second place, and Laura Palestini, the Liberal, in third place, just 141 votes by my amateur math there off the top of my head. Separating first from third place. So Greg, sorry to interrupt you, but I just wanted to point to that data because I know you've been checking it on your phone, but we just wanted to show it to the audience that's still watching at home.
And still less than 100 votes, polls still to go. So there's,
right.
I did curl up with my phone the night of St. Paul's, and I could see the trend, and then I decided to give up and eventually go to sleep. We don't know what time we'll know this. It feels...
So, sorry to interrupt you again. Tell me again, because I was trying to get those numbers up. What is your understanding from the people you're talking to the Liberal Party of the vote that is left to come that could help your team?
The two areas they feel good about, the LaSalle section of the riding, which is where the candidate represents municipally, and then something that I didn't have earlier was those people who were pulling the vote for the advance vote feel that it was going very well, going well for them. And if you look at the Main Street research poll that was in July, that's the one that had the Liberals in first place. So if this is a case where if they were pulling advance vote early and doing it strong, before the polling seemed to go in the direction of the bloc, it could have been very helpful for them.
So refresh my memory because I'm getting old. But at this point in Toronto St. Paul's, as we were getting ready to say goodbye, you were not optimistic about the advance vote. There was pretty grim, right? It's like we all left here without a declaration, but we anticipated the Conservatives were probably going to take that seat, right?
Yeah, and remember, you know, the candidate, the Liberal candidate there, did not have the visibility of being a municipal politician as we have with the Liberals and the New Democrats in LaSalle. So I think that is probably part of the difference as well. On that though, David, I will say something that Fred kind of poked in the back of my mind was on July 4th, I was at a U.S. 4th of July event and talking about one of those Quebec Liberals, and who's said to me, bit of a mess trying to get a candidate. There's a bunch of people that are interested. We had a good candidate, now no longer. So the Liberals need to understand, especially when they are the source of the by-election call, is who do you have lined up for a candidate? Because as these by-elections go, it's not going to become easier for them. And there will be others. I mean, Andy Fillmore is running for the mayor's seat in Halifax, so there'll have to be one.
John Aldag left to run for the NDP in British Columbia, which we'll see how that goes.
So there will be others.
That dynamic is changing out there big time. Right?
And again, when Fred said it earlier, the comments that Craig Sauvé made, in terms of the Palestinian issue, there will be other ridings that will be watching that, and that may have an impact for the New Democrats.
Okay, we got a couple of minutes left. We're going to leave here knowing that the Conservatives have conceded in Elmwood-Transcona. The official verification of that will come later, but it looks like the NDP win that seat, at least at this point in time. We're going to leave here knowing that anything can happen in LaSalle-Émard-Verdun. So, Fred, I mean, walk us through what you think the range of reaction could be tomorrow, because the Liberals are either going to lose this narrowly or win this narrowly. There is no affirming great surge in this must-win Liberal cabinet minister seat.
Yeah, it's bad news for the Liberals all around, even if it's a tight race and they win. For the NDP to have held Elmwood, it's a wash at least for them, or it could be a positive. In fact, they're competing in Quebec, I would say it's a positive. But for the Conservatives, and that's another hit for the Liberals, the Conservatives are at over 10% in a French riding on the island of Montreal.
11.3.
That's incredible. There's the English ridings in Montreal that we traditionally compete in, but these ridings were, usually nowhere.
This is pretty heavily Anglophone, though, right? This one's got a pretty high English population, does it not? If I'm remembering my demographics of this, it's it's 58% French. I apologize. I should never.
Thanks for fact checking the fact check.
No. Look, I'm big enough to admit when I'm wrong because it happens with great frequency. But yes, that is a very good point. That double digits in a French ride.
So it's another knock on the Liberals here, where the Conservatives are eating into different areas where they aren't traditionally strong. So again, I think a bad night for them, and the Bloc could be a good night for them, obviously, if they win this.
Right. So Mel, look, you're going to leave here with a chance to go 2 for 2. I mean, you've done I don't want to say the bare minimum because that diminishes it, but you've held, right? That really important, especially with the way Jagmeet Singh defined the choice, right? He's passed his first test where it's him against the Conservatives. He held.
Absolutely.
In your wildest dreams, what happens if Craig Sauvé wins this tomorrow?
I can't tell you what my wildest dreams are. And the NDP is texting me saying they're calling it in Elmwood. They're also saying that they are winning.
They say they've got it? Okay.
So great news for Leela there and the NDP there. And I know it seems like a hold, and it is, obviously, but folks are really worried about that one. So the fact that we can say that is really great. As for Montreal, I've got folks in British Columbia texting me saying how much hope they have that we are competitive like this in Montreal, because this was beyond their dreams, particularly with Jagmeet as leader. So hopefully we give Byelection a friend in the Quebec caucus and bring in Craig Sauvé in Montreal. But regardless, this result is something that New Democrats across the country will be happy with.
Okay, we're going to say goodbye, but before we do that, Tyler, can we just show the standings in LaSalle-Émard-Verdun one last time, because we want to leave you with this picture of just how tight it is. You can see it right there. One vote separating Craig Sauvé from Louis-Philippe Sauvé, and not that far behind is Laura Palestini for the Liberals, 27.5% to 27.5% to 26.9%. So that's going to be the last word on these by-elections from us here at the Canada Votes edition of Power in Politics, or Cochrane After Dark, as Greg McEachern likes to call it on the social media feeds. You can see that bowl of spaghetti there, the trend lines and the vote share. We'll try to untangle it tomorrow when we get the actual results and talk about what it all means. Tomorrow at 5 o'clock Eastern on the regularly scheduled edition of Power in Politics. I'm David Cochrane. I want to thank Greg McEachern, Melanie Richer, and Fred Delory, our chief political correspondent, Rosemary Barton, our reporters, Sarah Levitt, Allison Northcott, Paula Diane Perez, Ian Fraze, and Bartley Kivas, all of you for watching, and the technical crew and the crowd up in the control room. Thank you for watching this special night. Going to get some rest, bring you all the news and the results tomorrow, and a reaction on our regular edition of Power in Politics. Thank you for watching. We're going to do it again. Talk to you soon.